basically from the 25 into goal. And so I really like that also because it creates this environment. You can kind of feel the energy in those periods kind of wake up, moving the ball. Like the defense is talking a little bit of mess. Like the offense is getting a little bit stressed. Like I think that's great. And when you're talking about competition and reading that environment, you gotta like live in the fair a little bit. And I love that they emphasize that at the beginning of practice, they emphasize it in the middle, just to kind of keep guys locked in, and then they have a competitive 2-minute situation at the end too. So I love that structure of practice. I think it's really great. And again, it kind of like Dan talks about being good at situational football, being hyper competitive. You see the emphasis in terms of how they structure practice, and I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's definitely different. I spent most of my training camp days were Jay Gruden training camp days because I was on the beat. I obviously saw some of Ron's camps over the years, but with Jay, it was kind of nice as a reporter in that like it was very predictable and I knew what was going to happen every day. It was like, okay, we have the individual periods, then eventually they turn into one-on-ones. Like I still remember like those hot days in Richmond. So
We begin with breaking news. The U.S. West Coast, including our local counties, is under an unusual tsunami watch following a massive earthquake in Russia.
Again, this is a tsunami watch, not about it has people taking note. You all have been waiting a long time for this one. Here's the new trailer of Peacemaker, Season 2. Enjoy.
We doing it up this style.
hey guys, got beer. On. Oh, okay. Okay.
Just hand it to him.
I'll just hand it to him.
I've changed a lot since I last saw you. I don't want to be a joke anymore. I want to be a real hero.
You wear a clown costume and go out and beat up people. Chris, take something bad and mix.
The Jet Open experience.
Do you hear about that fucking object that's hurtling towards Earth at like 130,000 miles an hour?
Yeah, that might solve all our problems.
Some galactic object that's hurt. This guy Avi Loeb. He's a professor at Harvard that believes it might be an alien probe.
Wow.
And he's talking about the odds of this thing being in the trajectory that it is, entering into our solar system in a direct path with Earth. The odds are extremely large. And at the place where it's doing it, it's when the Earth is the opposite side of the sun, so it's coming from behind the sun. And so it makes it difficult to detect. And this object is in a direct line to come to Earth in 2027.
Do they have a trajectory where it's going to land?
I don't think they totally know that. I think they're trying to calculate whether or not it's actually going to hit Earth or come near Earth or pass by Earth or what it is.
Why do they think it's an alien satellite or whatever?
Well, there's this guy Avi Loeb, this professor that I'm discussing. He also had an analysis of another object that passed by Earth a few years back that they named, and they said that this thing had a very bizarre metallic sort of a look to it that he did not think, based on the shape of it and the way it was traveling, that it was natural. So he thought that that could have been some sort of an alien craft as well. It's too fun. It's too fun.
But as it gets closer, we could probably decipher.
Scientists give chilling update on mysterious interstellar object racing through our solar system. Warren, it's even bigger than we thought. provide a chilling update on a mysterious interstellar object that's racing through our solar system. Using data from the Veris Observatory, experts have revealed just how big the object 31 Atlas really is. According to their analysis, the object measures roughly 7 miles in diameter. Holy fuck. How big is New York City? Bigger than Mount Everest, making it the largest interstellar object ever. Professor Avi Loeb, theoretical physicist and cosmologist from Harvard University, suggested the object could be an alien spacecraft. However, not everyone is convinced. Chris Lintott, an astronomer at the University of Oxford told Live Science, any suggestion that it's artificial is nonsense and nonsense on stilts. He added that these claims are an insult to the exciting work going on to understand this object. So, it's legit. Avi Loeb is a legit astronomer.
Right. I mean, let's not rule anything out.
Yeah.
As it gets closer.
There's something about it, about the way it's traveling, that it's bizarre. It doesn't have a trail like a comet. The comet were actually found by the Veris officially discovered. However, since it was identified on July 1st, scientists, just a little bit ago, scientists have scoured back through data to find out more about the mysterious object. A new study published on RxV, whatever that is, more than 200 researchers have confirmed the likely size of the comet's main body, known as its nucleus. The analysis suggests the nucleus has a radius of around 3.5 miles. That translates to diameter or width of about 7 miles. To put that in perspective, bigger than Mount Everest, twice the size of Mount Kilimanjaro. But yeah, so the Oumuamua, this is 2017. This is who came on and talked to us about that. Was believed to be around 0.2 miles wide, and comet Borisov, discovered in 2019, was roughly 0.6, 1 kilometer. So this thing is fucking huge. Yeah. So, previously speaking to Mail Online, Professor Loeb pointed out that its impressive speed of 130,000 miles per hour as an indication that it might be controlled by aliens. He said it's difficult to imagine a natural process that would favor a plunge towards the inner solar system at 60 kilometers per second, he said. An alternative is that the object targets the inner solar system by some technological design. Oh boy. Oh boy.
Hopefully they come in peace.
Well, that might be the end of it, or maybe that's like, they realize like that's when AI starts to take over and it's chaos. So it's just, that's when it's going to happen. It's just like launch a 7-mile wide thing into the earth and just start looking at the dinosaurs.
Well, you're saying it hits an AI, our AI fights it? Or they...
It wipes out the AI. It wipes it out. Just like when the dinosaurs were here, and the dinosaurs were too powerful. And they're like, yeah, we can just fucking start from scratch. Maybe that's how they like reset the game.
And then, so humanity was like that.
Everything. Yeah, where, and then they come along and do genetic engineering, secretly with us and monkeys, and create a new version of humans. This time it was a little less territorial, a little more inquisitive, a little more interested in innovation, a little less interested in dominating and controlling resources. Because that's what fucked us. Territorial apes get high technology and use territorial behavior to defend and acquire resources, and that creates war. Did you see that fucking dude? There's a dude who, this is a crazy story, and Tom Segura was on Mr. Ballin, and Mr. Ballin explained this thing that happened. I forget what year it was. Okay, so this Mexican pilot was flying, and in the middle of his flying, he got confused, didn't know what the fuck happened, he fell asleep, and he woke up and he was over the ocean. He was like, how did I get over the ocean? This doesn't even make any sense. And the amount of gas that was missing from his plane didn't make any sense that he was able to get this far. And what they're saying, and there's a recording of this, is that this guy went into a trance and was channeling some alien intelligence that was explaining through this guy's voice that the human race is the only intelligent race in the universe that still uses war, still kills people and engages in large-scale conflict, has nuclear weapons, and that they have to stop doing this, or that someone's going to step in. It's a crazy story. Play the story.
Someone's gonna.
Can we play it? Some of it? Just to give credit to Mr. Ballin. Well, everybody should just go to it. If you just tell me how to go to it, I'll just drive people to see it.
That was really good YouTube channel too.
Yeah. Yeah, but this was a great one. And then there's an actual audio recording of this guy saying this. I'll send you the audio recording. You can't find it real quick. Oh God, I sent it to Tom. After I saw Tom on the show, I was like, Tom, I go, that was fucking crazy, man. And he's like, dude, wild. And then I sent him this. I said, did you know there's an actual recording that you can listen to of the guy saying this? So if you go like halfway into it, you got it. Oh, you got it. Okay. So a certain distance into it, you hear the guy talking in this very bizarre monotone Spanish.
Take your funds. Get your salad together.
Global investment. We're setting up a new office. We need chairs. You can supply that. Global investment. The source for industrial equipment and supplies.
And the Fred Anderson Family Plan is now available at Fred Anderson Acura in Greenville. The family plan includes lifetime oil changes, 100 cars, and more. Fred Anderson Acura, Barnes Road in Greenville.
I don't remember how it started. Our back and forth. Victory. Fumble. Repeat. It always came back. You probably don't remember what you told me. But I do remember.
Nice. Was it UFO? Like, why did they show that UFO, that fake UFO?
Video to watch to keep you interested on YouTube.
Oh, keep me interested. I'll be interested anyway. Yeah, let me hear it. He is speaking, is not known. The equipment is too primitive. This is the only way to convey. Lower down a microphone. The equipment is too primitive. This is the only way to convey their message. After almost an hour, the beings would release via the pilot from his hypnotic state and return control of the plane so that he could receive instructions. And at the same time, he managed to land at the Acapulco airport. Interesting. You know, that's the thing, like, if there was a unique event where something happened and an alien race did interact with human beings and then never again, you know what I believe? Even if it was real, that's a like unique event. We base reality on what we experience and what everybody else experiences on a day-to-day basis,
Right.
What we have evidence of. But if something happened that was completely unique like that, where they said, like, this is the only way we can communicate, they're quick, primitive,
Right.
just take over this guy's mind and have
Right.
him say it. Like, who knows? I would believe that.
That's the whole translator.
Okay, the alien message is spoke to Rafael Perez, to the air traffic controller. It says, he speaks because he is ordered to. That is, it is his voice he speaks, but not of his own free will. We need a microphone. No matter who we are or where we come from, it is enough for you to know that we are beings of this universe where you belong. Our planet is many light years away, but we are physically equal. I repeat that all races in the universe are physically equal. You are not alone in the universe, and there are other races that are far away from you, and we are watching you. But he said more than that. Where's the full extent of his quote? Because he said something about you're the only race that still engages in warfare. I want to believe it. All right, why don't we leave this on that?
I definitely think there's other life forms out there.
I
And
don't know
everyone
what really happened. I really wish I knew. I mean, I really
This
wish I
guy did fall asleep while he was flying a plane, so can we really trust him?
Right, and he did wake up over the ocean. But if he did wake up over the ocean, it doesn't mean he got over the ocean. That's true.
Right.
Explain that. Like, how did he get there?
Yeah.
What'd you do? Take over the plane, move it with your spaceship? Why'd you put him over the ocean? So,
Right.
why'd you do that? What is all this?
And what's the thing with the gas being gone?
Right. Because I guess they, like, picked it up and took it.
Huh.
We are watching you. What else does it say? Government surprise. Issues certificate stating he was in perfect health and had not consumed any drugs. It ruined his career and he never piloted a plane again. Wow.
First of all,
Whoa. Imagine your first solo flight, like I pull a fucking gang on these motherfuckers. I got an idea. I got some
that
extra hands.
was 1976?
Yeah.
Wow. No, I don't know if I believe that account, but I do believe that there's other life forms out there.
My problem is I want to believe that account. That's always the problem with all things. I want to believe. I want to believe so bad that I don't think enough rationally sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, these stories are all, it's like whether you trust this or not, but the universe is too big for us to be the only ones here.
Oh, for sure.
And I don't care if Mars doesn't have any water. Maybe they don't need water.
They think Mars is not full of us. And do you know that there's structures on Mars that they've observed even recently that look like perfect squares that are huge?
Huh.
There's this one that I showed to Elon. I go, what is that? Tell me what do you think that is? Oh, we'll move it over the world. Like, yeah, we should probably move it around.
He's the guy to do it.
But what is, like, he didn't want to say what he
Right.
thought it was, but I'm looking at him like, he could have been at one point in time a structure, because it has perfect right angles and it's a square, and it's huge.
Right.
They said it's at least hundreds of meters across, but it might be miles across. It's rough estimates, but they know it's large. Have you seen it? J-Lo showed it too. But it's like a literal square. There's a bunch of shit weird there. There's like a face on Mars, but I'm not totally convinced about that. But that one's nuts. Like, that's kind of crazy. Didn't that look kind of crazy?
It's on the right?
Yeah. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
That looks like a fucking square.
Oh yeah, that looks like a foundation.
I mean, tell me what the fuck
Yeah.
that is. What is that?
Right.
That does not look normal. Those angles don't look normal at all. That lower left-hand corner, like, what is that? And then the fact that it's roughly a square. I mean, I don't know if it's a square or a rectangle. It seems like it's a little taller than it is wide.
Right.
But whatever it is, it looks like a fucking structure, man. It's weird.
Well, just because we can't exist there doesn't mean other life forms can't exist there.
Or other life forms used to exist there.
Right.
Like, imagine if there was, like, if there's life on Earth right now, today, and if Mars at one point in time had a sustainable atmosphere, like millions and millions of years ago, what if there was life forms? What if we are the offspring of the life on Mars? What if those fucking guys just realize, like, hey, this place is falling apart. Let's shoot over to Earth.
That's
and
something.
reassess.
Yeah.
I mean, that might be why we're so different than every other primate that's here.
I never thought about it like that. That might be true. I think it's so vast and we know so little about everything, it's possible. That's just, I kind of like broaden it that way, where it's like, it's all possible. The universe is infinite and we know very little about it.
Yeah, it's totally possible.
Yeah.
It's just not like, I mean, it seems, because you haven't seen anything, but it's not like,
But we're trying to use our logical brains to figure out, could this be possible? It's like, there's so much we don't know. We have such a limited scope with our human minds to even comprehend stuff. So it's like,
The difference between an average morning and a Hardee's morning is hearty goodness that lasts till lunchtime, like our smoked sausage biscuit. Frisco breakfast sandwich. Hardee's. Goodness in the making. We're taking them all down. We stick together, we can. No killing outside of an official round.
Faster to go like new.
It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
What's up? What's happening? Welcome in, Take Command podcast. Been here, Logan Paulson there, back in DC. Very happy to be here because all the things I had to take care of went very well. I'm back like 3 days early, Logan. Haven't had a chance to Ashburn yet, but we're now 6 practices deep as we record. Tuesday morning is about 10:20 a.m. Logan fresh off the practice field in Ashburn. Since we last recorded a show, Logan, there's been a rather large development. There's been a certain fella who showed up out there. Terry McLaurin is back. We're going to start the show talking to him. It'd be cool if we were talking to him. We're not going to talk to him. We're talking about him. And then we are going to get into practice. But how you feeling 6 days in? Just generally feeling. Does it feel like football again?
Oh yeah, it does feel like, it's just, I just love seeing the process. I love seeing Dan Quinn's process, the staff's process, how they work through stuff. Like some of the things we talked about in the last show, just how those storylines have developed and matriculated over the last, couple of days. And then the other thing, it was really cool, big event for us in the Command Center podcast.
Yeah.
Show was Santana Moss is getting, inducted into the Ring of Fame or whatever, which is really couldn't have no better guys. That's been a big part of my life the last couple of days, because seeing him.
Well, say honorable. This wasn't on the rundown, but I actually would like to talk about this. Tana on, he's someone that either of us could text easily and be like, "Hey, dude, you want to come on?" But I worked with Tana back in 2016. One of my big first things I did for 106.7 was host the Santana Moss show. So I know him a little bit and wanted to do a lot of deep dive into his career around that. But we work with him every day now and we play with him. So pick up from there.
Yeah, no, and again, it was something, he's such a funny guy, man, in the sense that, he's the coolest man around. He's very gracious, he's very kind, but, and he has this aura of a guy that, he doesn't come across as a guy that played for as long as he did and did what he did in terms of accolades. And so, he doesn't really talk about his career, you know what I mean, in terms of, this is how many yards I had, this is how many touchdowns I had, this is what I deserve. And so, I think it was really cool for me to see him, get this recognition and to see his emotional reaction to it. He said multiple times in the show, he was because it was it's, as a player, and we were talking on one of our other shows about this, as a player, your goal is to leave a mark on something, right? And so, I played for 10 years, Fred played for 9, a lot of guys, thousands of guys play for a long time, and you never really remember their career doesn't have any impact. And so, for Tana to get this acknowledgement of the impact his career had on the organization, and to see really the fandom and how they reacted to it. That he was the guy for a generation, for a decade of Commanders fans, Redskin fans, Washington football team fans. I think it's really cool. And so to see the outpouring of support from the team, to see the outpouring of support from the fans, I think is really cool. And I think it's cool that the team is kind of going and retroactively finding these guys that deserve these opportunities. We've been promoting B. Mitch for the Hall of Fame, London Fletcher for the Hall of Fame, Joey McCoy. This is something we weren't doing before, and now to see some of that stuff come to light is really cool, and it could be happening for a better human being.
Yeah, I am such a big Santana fan, and I used to joke with him. So my favorite player growing up was an undersized receiver who was scrappy and tough and fast and physical, who wore number 89, and it was Steve Smith. Because I grew up in the Carolinas, and that was my team. But because of that, the fact that there was this guy in Washington who similar size, they're different players obviously, and I could grow to appreciate how different they were as I've gotten older. But as a 8 to 15-year-old or whatever the ages I was when they were doing their thing, they're just 2 smaller, scrappy dudes who fought like hell, that were awesome, that wore the same number and had similar builds and or similar heights at least. And I always had an eye on Tana, and just the electricity that he brought. I always just really appreciated that even as a kid. Nevertheless, as I got older and more advanced as a football fan, and now having the chance when I worked with him to look back, and we used to do story time with Tana, some of the stuff he has from Miami, obviously, those epic teams. Some of the stuff he went through with the Jets, just unbelievable stories. That was my favorite thing about working with him. Is just he's an incredible storyteller. But he also has the stories because he was there and he was that freaking guy. He was so good. What was it, 05, I think, was his 1,400-yard season. Just one of the all-time great receiving seasons of history. And he played with basically a different quarterback every year. He had a guy for even half of his career
I think he's probably being considered for the Hall of Fame. Like, he was a Hall of Fame caliber player that is stuck, quote, big air quotes there, in just the ring of fame because he played a dependent position where the position he was dependent on wasn't always very good and mostly was actually pretty bad. So the fact that he was able to do what he did despite the circumstances just is a testament to how great he was. He deserves this 100 times over, and I was really, really thrilled to see it. Just the announcement, and then I saw you guys crash the set. And how cool is it, by the way, that B. Mitch is the one to tell him, and I love B. Mitch's phrasing. You're coming up. He's like, hey, I'm up here. You're coming to join me. Welcome, partner. They're like, they just started doing with the Hall of Fame, where like you get the knock at the door, and it's someone who's already in, wearing their gold jacket, being like, here's yours. So I love that. I loved everything about it. This ownership group deserves a ton of credit for how they handled, like you said, all of the history they're trying to reclaim and re-elevate. And, you know, Santana more than deserving of this honor.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm glad you said the ownership too, because I mean that's them. Like, they flew family up, they flew friends up, and they made that happen. They made that moment happen for him. And like, you know, under past ownership, like talk about things that were messed up, and things like this were messed up all the time. And so like making the moment it should feel. I think people deserve a lot of credit for that, which is pretty exciting. So, you know, you mentioned like kind of your history with Santana, like growing up watching him. And I remember one of my, in 2010, Kyle Shanahan had a cut up of Santana. I was the other far, I'm an LA kid, watching out here. And I was always a fan of his, but like Kyle Shanahan was sitting in the meeting, one of the guys I respect most from a football standpoint like, ever, goes like, you know, my favorite receiver growing up was Santana Moss. I cut up of him running a play we're installing today. And it was like, and I just like, oh my God, like how cool is this, that this coach.
Santana's sitting there in the meeting.
Yeah, like this coach is fanboying over Santana, watching Coach Santana, who's sitting right here, who's balling out on this field. And he was in year like 11 at that point, but it was just like, he's a special person, special player, and he deserves the opportunity for sure.
He's also a guy that, had he played in this era, would have been a destroyer of worlds.
Oh my
He
God.
was so far ahead of his skill set standpoint. Like some of these playmakers in space, kind of like the creative ways that you get guys like that the ball. Or honestly, like I think the best era for Santana would have been like if he was Tom Brady's slot receiver, he'd be considered the greatest of all time. Like the stuff that all viewers like Wes Welker was super special. Like don't get it twisted. Wes Welker's an awesome player, but like the stuff Santana could do and that's the thing is like Kyle eventually put him in the slot and extended his Santana's talked about it like his career, but like he was a dude who was like 5'9", whatever he is, 5'10", playing outside, putting up 1,400 yards without being moved around, without being made a kind of weapon that he was capable of being in a modern NFL offense. Man, if he could have played two eras later with the creativity that we have in this league now,
It's scary. It's quite honestly scary to think about, like just how good he could have been. Like, cause he was kind of playing left-handed when he was playing outside all the time, and was still dominant. And could you imagine if he was in like the Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan offense where we're moving around the formation, we're using motion shifts to get him fair? Like, are you kidding me? Like, so yeah, man. It's like you said, it's in some ways it's sad that he's not going to get the kind of acknowledgement because of the quarterbacks, because of the offensive situation here. But at least he's getting this, and this is a pretty special honor, and he's really excited about it, so that's cool.
Yeah, for sure. And those of us that saw it, those of us that have been around it, like that's the fun part about doing this is you get to continue to keep the legacies of those players alive. And when the kids come up and like, oh no, this is the greatest, that you're like, you should have seen what 89 coming back in the day, which is fun. It also means we're getting old. All right, from the best receiver of that era to undoubtedly the best receiver of this one, who has shown up. Terry is there now, and he obviously rave reviews or rave reception from fans. Pretty smart on the PR publicity side of it. If you're fighting that war to show up on the day that camp comes open to fans, obviously. Teammates getting involved too. Jaden on SportsCenter doing the Terry chants. Then you have this report from Adam Schefter yesterday that's like he's asking for more than DK Metcalf, maybe significantly more. Which to me means probably like DK's, and he's basing it off that 33 AAV number, average annual value number. That's looking at $34, $35 a year. There is no way he's getting that from the Commanders. So, while the feels are good that Terry is there, the feels are bad on the contract actually getting done here. So where does that feels like?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, like I was Terry's in, it was like in 2017, 2000, I forget, 2017, 2018, whatever season that was, like Julio was like a hold in, and they were working an extension, so he's around, but like it always felt like it was progressing because he was in the building, right? He was there, so like okay, great, like he's here, he must be getting close to something. So when he showed up, I was like, oh, this is great. They must be getting close to a number that they're both excited about. And obviously the report comes out. Yeah, like, I don't want to comment on what Terry's worth because emotionally to fans he's worth something, but the play on the field, the age, that's worth something different. But I was like, they're going to be very far apart if that's what he's actually asking for. And the distance between the two numbers is a little bit unnerving, right? And I think that's something that I kind of went in. What was that Sunday? Where I was like, oh, this is going to be great. They're going to be close. They're going to make an announcement.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh. But after that report, it's like, just understanding kind of where he's at, the other receivers that are making a lot of money, like, and I don't think the team and him are as close as I was hoping. And Shepard realized that they're
Right,
kind of far
exactly.
off.
Exactly. And this is where the agent becomes so important. Because hearing about the DK number, we both talked about this. I think you were the first one who was like, this is going to become a problem. And I was like, I'd hope not. I guess I had more faith in kind of the information getting to Terry to be like, that number's, and like, I don't need to go over it again, but just in case someone is tuning in for the first time. The short version is DK signed like a 4-year deal that in the last a ton of money in it that is not guaranteed. That is the money that is bringing the average up to 33. Realistically, he signed a 2-year, $60 million deal. He's right on 30 in terms of the guaranteed money. And there's a chance he gets into year 3 of that contract. There is 0 chance that DK Metcalf is playing on the cap, unless the cap mega explodes in 3 straight career years. Then the Steelers will be like, fine, we'll let you play out this last year. But it's like literally, I think it's almost $40 million of cap hit that year. Like that's how much the inflation is on the back end of that contract to make it look like whatever DK wanted on paper. But if you're Terry's agent, you just have to be like, hey man, that's not the number we're concerned with. See this column, see the guaranteed at signing column, see the real like guarantees column, which I think for DK is the same number. Like I think he got the highest guaranteed at signing, but there's basically no additional guarantees in the contract, the practical guarantees, if you will. Like those numbers for DK not that hard to beat.
And the Fred Anderson family plan now available at Fred Anderson Hyundai of Greer. The family plan includes lifetime oil changes, loaner cars, and more. Keep it easy at Fred Anderson Hyundai of Greer.
Relationships are important. We need these connections to feel bigger, but also to keep us grounded. And when we get it right, they are extremely rewarding. And then there are some relationships that just feel like a reward. On your Mommy Rig Day, we follow your preferences each time to make sure your home is cleaned exactly the way you like, with your home feeling fresh. You build the relationships that matter most. Molly May, a neighborly company.
And can be done in the first 2 years, basically, in fact. Certainly with a little bit put into year 3 if you don't want to extend that much further in team. But trying to beat that 33 number, like, you're going to have fake years at the end. And I guess, like, if they wanted to, they could. They like, I know we talked a lot about Jaden's extension and even needing to have the room. But, like, the cap numbers extensions are lower in the first year. So, like, you have time if you wanted to do that. But I don't know why you'd want to do that. Just, like, get your money now. Let's get going. Like, let's do this thing. And Terry's in a bad spot to negotiate from outside. Like, Terry is 100%, has 100% support on the sentimental side. He's the best receiver recently. All the stuff he's been through, captain, done everything you want. Like, from a storytelling standpoint, it's very easy to just be like, hey, if I'm being cold hard businessman, I go, you're under contract for this year. Like, your money's not guaranteed, but like, if you play, like, we're gonna pay you that money. We'd be willing to guarantee it. And then we just tag you next year and still be paying you less than what you're asking for at the 34 or 35 number. So why would we do that? And like, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where, like, I've said this before, I have tremendous empathy for Terry. Like, ultimately, you want to get paid what you feel like you're worth. So Sometimes that doesn't always work out, doesn't always jive. And again, like I know I've negotiated with Adam, I've talked to Adam, I think he's a great person, right? And so like this is like kind of the shady side, not the shady side, but like the darker side of NFL business, right? Like you have two kind of opposing goals. And the one thing I will say is like, based on what you laid out there, which I think is a great, for fans to understand the contract landscape, right? Someone is giving him not great advice, Terry, right? I truly believe that. Because I think if he understood what the deal actually looked like, what the numbers actually were, I think he'd have more clarity on what a quote unquote deal for Terry would be. And so again, like I'm not going to tell Terry he should do anything differently than he's doing. I'm not going to tell Adam to do anything differently than he's doing. But like it does feel to me as a player who has some contract experience that like he's just not getting realistic advice. Let's just say that. And I don't know who's telling him that, right? I'm not saying that's the agent's fault either, but like it does seem like he's getting bad advice somewhere up the chain.
Yeah, for sure. Again, just to kind of run through the market, average annual value, Chase getting the fourth most money behind CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. You look at the guarantee.
He's not in that zip code. Like as a player, he's not in that zip code. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a stick. Like I don't know, man. Like it's a bad. I know you've done a great job explaining. It's a bad deal. If that's the marker you're using, it's a bad deal to use. It doesn't work. You know what I'm saying? So
Right. He's also the fourth highest guaranteed at signing with 60, but the practical guarantees on DK's contract down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10. And Garrett Wilson, I believe, is the only guy on this list, who has signed this year. So it's not like he just got passed by a bunch of dudes. Like, that's... And by the way, Terry seems to value those numbers because he's 2 players down. It's Tyreek and then Terry's last contract. So, like, Terry should understand the value of practical guarantees here. And if you wanted to get above DK at 60, you have a ton of room between the 60 there and that gets 76. So, like, if you want to get to 65 in practical guarantees with 61 at signing, you could be ahead of DK in those 2 facets without having to do a 30 AAV over 4 years and 132 theoretical value, which is what DK's number is. And again, like, we're not going to see that. So that's kind of the state of play. Again, the feels were nice when Terry showed up. The reporting killed the feels. Continue to monitor. But there's also a football reality that is playing out on the field with, the offense struggling a little bit here in camp, specifically against man coverage. So, the football, Logan?
Yeah, let's do it.
Take Command Podcast. That's Logan Paulson. I am Craig Hoffman. And the offense not having the best training camp so far, Logan. We did talk last time about why some of that tends to happen across the league early on in camp. Defenses get installed at a faster rate. Some of the stuff that defenses install early requires more specific game plan or even just specific base levels to be able to compete against at a high level. And that's later in the offensive install. But I think one of the things that's been interesting so far that you and I have been talking about as you've been keeping me abreast of what's going on and also following along, all the reporters and everybody that's out there is the defense is playing a ton of man coverage and the offense is specifically struggling with that. And I think that's really interesting because I expect to see that. And, Terry part of this aside for a second, I expect to see that a lot this year. Because of some of the numbers that we saw last year, and I can get into those in a second. But just observationally, like what do you see of this kind of in the passing game, offense-defense matchup, and why the defense has seemingly found more success, assuming you agree with that?
Yeah, well, first off, I think the defense is doing a great job. I think, we talked about...
and that's part of it too, right? Like our guys just in phase all the time doing a great job.
Yeah, Will Harris, like Trey Wilson had a great QB. You see his experience, you see his length, so I want to make sure that we're giving those guys credit. But I will say, one of the things that this offense did so well last year is they did a really good job of isolating matchups versus man-to-man coverage and basically taking advantage of that, right? So, one of the statistics that comes to mind for me is last year, they were 4th or 3rd in explosive plays over 50 yards. So if you think about those and you put those and you're watching, it's like explosive play to Deion on a go, right? Explosive play to Terry on a go. There's OZ behind the defense on a go, right? And they did a great job of cultivating. James Daniels, like one of his superpowers, is throwing one of the best kind of, box fade, deep ball, go kind of high trajectory balls that I've ever seen, right? So what I would say is that like now that the defensive coverage is getting better and those opportunities are becoming lower percentage, the offensive efficiency seems to be decreasing. So that's what that's what I'm kind of being aware of when I watch practice. Like, oh, it's single high, they're going to press man on the single receiver side. This is where the ball traditionally has gone. This is where the ball is going. And the coverage is better. The receivers, I will say this, also looked a little bit tired today. You know, because like when you think Noah Brown gets 2 vet days early in camp, Terry's not here, you're down bodies, so guys are taking a lot of volume in terms of reps. So they looked at times a little bit sluggish in the defense. I will say this also, the referees are letting them get away with a lot of tugs and pulls and grabs, which I like in training camp. Let's get used to that now. Again, that was something that was a very high completion percentage for this team last year. Now it feels like it's kind of normalized a little bit. And when it's normalized, it goes from, let's say, 55% to 35%. That's going to feel very distinctly when it comes to offensive football. So there's that element of it, and then there's also the element of the line play, we'll talk about here more in a second.
Yeah, I mean, the referee stuff is always something that I try to remind myself of in training camp, where it's like, man, defense is dominant. And you get out the first preseason game, and there's 78 flags on the defense, and you're like, oh, maybe that the defense was so good in training camp.
They have been calling, like, DPI, and they have been called, so for example, there was a play today where, I forget who it was, I think it was Mike Sanders still on number 19, and
Chris Moore,
yeah. So, and basically, like, Sanders was in good coverage, but I don't think it was anything crazy. Ball was a little bit high and outside. I felt like Sanders did a good job widening, so the window is really small for Jay to throw into. And Moore looks like they got to call that hole, and Sanders looks at him and says, like, don't look at the referee, like, you got to win that route. And so, like, later in practice, there's a holding call that's called on Carlin Biggers, who I think had a decent day today, but, like, gets a holding call. So they are calling stuff. It's just, I think that they're getting used to what is going to be called and what's not going to be called is also for this process, right? And so I would always rather err if the DB's playing with good technique, which I felt like Mikey was in this situation. Marshall Lattimore had one later, which again, I felt like was a competitive amount of contact. Nothing too crazy, nothing too light. It was kind of in that golden zone. Like, let the boys play, right? That's what I mean. He's using good technique, the receiver's using good technique. Let's see if we can complete this football and make this happen. And say, like, they are calling stuff. Like, I think it was 2 days ago, there was a bunch of DPI, right? Tyler Owens had a couple, like Carlin Biggers had one. Like, there was a bunch, but today, felt pretty clean. So I think it's an evolution by the defense, and it's just, the offense just, and again, like, these pass plays that they're trying to complete are traditionally lower percentage, right? So I think that's, all those things kind of factor into what's happening.
Yeah, so let's dive deeper into that, because I think some of this is, like, I've seen a lot of, like, great ball by Jaden dropped by Chris Moore. Okay, well, that becomes a team. Or not a ton, like, I shouldn't single out Chris Moore. It dropped by insert receiver here, right? And so if that's happening and that receiver in a game rep is going to Terry, well, then we're talking about that percentage, maybe it normalizes to 45% because Terry's really good at contested catches compared to all these other guys. So that is definitely part of it. I think the other question I would have is, if teams are going to play more man coverage, is that a suitable answer to just say, like, all right, 3 by 1, if it's man coverage, we're going to one side, we're going to go ball? Or do we trust that Cliff Kingsbury will evolve the offense and have more answers? Because I think he was that was, I think, a criticism of him in Arizona, was like, it was kind of similar stuff and teams figured it out. And I feel like last year, you know, there was talk in the middle of the season of the Cliff, and then they just went on absolute tear in January, and were awesome, and he changed some tweaks and things and figured some things out. So how confident are we that there are more answers in the bag, especially in year 2 of this offense, with a chance for it to evolve in year 2 of the Cliff Daniels partner, the Kingsbury Daniels partnership?
Yeah, so I think that's a great point. It's something we kind of touched on in terms of, like, you know, you don't change your offensive install. You don't, like, match defense. You don't game plan defense, which I think is maybe the more important thing here, right? Is like, I've seen Cliff and that offensive staff come up with great defense, great play design, really put people in blenders, put them in binds, understanding where the punch should go, and that's kind of an element we really need to double click on here. But like, you don't. So like, if day 1 install, and we're on day 6, but like, if our base install is that, hey, we're gonna signal a fade and you're gonna throw a fade here, that's our base install. We're not gonna change that, like, just because the defense is winning the day, quote. Like, we're gonna run it, like, because that's what we're gonna do. And then when we get into more game plan specific stuff, we're playing the New York Giants, we understand what kind of coverage structures they're gonna be in. then we're going to say, hey, maybe we want a slant backside, or maybe we want to check to a different protection, or maybe you kind of layer it on because you understand the matchups better, you understand how to play the coverages better, you understand things that you've shown on tape, and you can like layer plays a little bit more. So I'm not that worried about it, like long term, because I think Cliff is a great offensive mind. I think the staff that he's assembled, DeVita, Blau, like those guys are super smart. Johnson's like they're all smart dudes. They're gonna figure it out. But as of right now, like if the offense is struggling, it's just because they're engaging in what I would consider lower percentage opportunities.
Sign up today. Feeling healthy, please, and balanced. Making a dinner that makes their whole day. And your best friend with the best nutrients for their best life. Science did that.
So last year, Daniels completed 74% of his passes against zone coverage, the fourth highest rate in the NFL, but 8 touchdowns, 7 picks. Man coverage, far less percentage, high percentage on the throws, 57 to 74%, but 17 touchdowns to 2 picks. So the high risk, high reward type of stuff last year is there. Remember that's that existed on the playoffs. They would just go dig it up on NFL Pro. So, we talk about, are we going to see a lot more man coverage and see teams take that boom or bust? Like, we're pretty sure we're not going to be the team that gives up a touchdown. That's going to be an interesting thing to follow this year. I will say, it feels like Debo's name came up quite a bit today. I think it was Ben Standig, tweeted out that, like, hey, he's at least 1 or 2 explosive plays every single practice. So, good to see him going. But none of that matters without protection side of it. The offensive line news note of Urbig retired. So they signed him in the offseason. We thought he might be in the mix at right time. Replace, yeah. Yeah, you're coming off injury, you think you want to come back, you get out there and you're like, I think I'd rather do something else in my life. I made it 5 years worth of NFL money, let's go face. So that's a guy that's out. I saw some stuff, Chris Paul's like been really in with even with the ones. So that's interesting, and a guy that you kind of slot into that place that maybe we thought Urbig would be in a rotation. But no matter who's out there, how are they doing from a protection standpoint? And is it like not coming together if things are not going well? Is it not having calls in yet? Like, what's the prognosis here?
Yeah, I just think it's the same. In this situation, I feel like it's kind of like the most extreme version of what we've been talking about. It's like they're bringing a lot of pressure, kind of exotic pressures, great disguises, double A gap mug, we've got 4-man overloads, we've got all these different things, and then on top of that, there's some players kind of working through some difficult one-on-one matchups, and so you get pressure from that. But I do think like one of the things is like you're watching 2 minutes, for example, and they run some type of double A, and there's a great disguise. You're like, oh, this is double A. Oh, it's Tampa 2. Oh, it's double A. Oh, no, it's a fire zone. Like Cam Padrona today had a great interception where he's kind of up on the line of scrimmage, looks like he's going to blitz. If any of you watched his Nebraska film, highlights, for example, his interception in that game where he's in the line of scrimmage, kind of bounces out, picks the ball off, and does a great job of disguising it. So like when you're watching it, like they're doing a good job of being kind of what I would say Dan Quinn's defense was when he was in Dallas, where it's like we're creating quick pressures, quick wins, sometimes rushing with 4 because the disguise works, or fronting overloads or stunts or whatever. Most times rushing with 5, and really putting the offensive line in a tough situation where you're challenging rules a lot. And I think about talking about Cliff, like one of the things he did a great job of last year was coming up with great, consistent protection plans. He's not going to do that now, right? So you're running this kind of versus your basic 5-man protection, your basic 6-man protection. Like I know how to beat that if I'm Joe Wick Jr. And I might not even be trying. I'm just installed pressures that are good. And so again, you're getting quick pressures. The quarterback's having to make quick decisions. And the coverage in the back end, man, like when you just sit back and watch the coverage, like whether it's cover 2, whether it's man, whether it's some type of match coverage, like they do such a good job of like just taking the care out, right? There's not a lot of throwing space, right? They're playing physical, they're disrupting at the line of scrimmage. It's everything that I think, I was hoping for last year. You're starting to see shades of that now. So the protection is struggling, but also a testament to how well the defense is playing.
Yeah, which is definitely going to be interesting because I think Commanders fans are scarred from past years of, the defense is playing really well. And it's like, actually, some of those rare years, both sides of the ball just actually weren't that good. So I think there's probably a little bit of scare of like, oh, is our offense progress? But I think that the amount of change on offense, no Terry for now, Tunsil and all the shifts across the offensive line, like that takes a while to coalesce versus a defense where, yeah, you've got some new pieces for sure, but you also have a guy like Bobby in the middle, and just defense is simpler than offense, and so it's able to coalesce faster. And also, like, these guys were all pretty much there outside of Lattimore, and even Lattimore was there some in the spring. So, like, they were able to get their stuff together in the spring versus Tunsil basically didn't do any teamwork in the spring. You had a bunch of other guys that were in and out of the spring. And so I think that's going to be interesting to watch them continue to come together. One last guy that I want to mention real quick, or one last thing on offense. Running backs, you finally get a chance to see them because the pads are on. And it feels like Krosky, like, how much of the Bill is having an awesome camp stuff is fans and media getting over their skis about a running back in camp because every run looks like a touchdown? Like, is that kid actually, like, showing some real pop as a second rounder?
I mean, I think there's a little bit of that. There's always a little bit of that. Like, I was talking to people, like, I really like Bill. I like him as a player. I like what he's doing. I like his vision. His burst through the hole. I like how he accelerates. I like how hard he runs. I like how he finishes. Like, there's a lot of stuff to like. But I mean, you've covered the team long enough. Like, you understand that, like, those late round backs, like, they'll flash a little bit in these settings, but like,
They pass.
yeah, they mess up. Like, and again, I don't think he's messing anything up, but it's just like it's different when you put pads on yours. Is bigger. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
It's different. And so I think I'm excited to watch him in preseason. Like, he's a guy that I've definitely like circled, and I'm like, I want to see what you look like and see, because you've got all of these things that kind of seem to match in there with your college. So that's really exciting. And so, like, there are people like, for example, like Stratton, the receiver number 84. Like, I think he's going to be a lot of fun to watch. He's made some plays. Like, he had a really awesome contested catch in like an end of game 2 minutes in there, and they just kind of threw up a fade, and he just high pointed it above everybody. Made a play. So did Jalen Lane. So everyone's kind of flashed. Jacoby Brooks is another guy that's flashed. Yeah, they kind of had their moments, but to be a good pro, it's a consistent long-term play, right? So what does that look like moving forward? And for Bill, you asked about him specifically, like, I want to see him with pads on versus a team sacking him in the ground, because they don't have him, because that's part of keeping guys safe during the game. So when that happens, I'll give you how I actually feel about him. But right now, yes, good vision, good burst, good finish, love all that stuff. It's just, I want to see the real deal.
I feel like the max of excitement for a running back is what you have. I want to see him. I can't wait to see him.
Right.
Not he's amazing and they already have a steal because we're 6 days in the training camp and he hasn't run against a real defense yet. And that's how running backs work in training camp. So not trying to put a wet blanket on anything, unless you're like thinking that they drafted a Hall of Famer and said not already, and you know because you don't. But I am definitely excited to see him in the preseason. All right, let's talk about this defense here to wrap up on Take Command. Take Command podcast, Greg Hoffman here, Logan Paulson there. Observations from Commanders training camp on the defensive ball. Defensive line, Logan. This was the unit with probably the most injury coming into the year, and then they signed Von Miller. So we've added some even more of like, what's this going to look like? And it sounds like for most of the reports so far, pretty good. What you see?
Yeah, I think what you're seeing is just a bunch of different body types on the defensive line, and the guys that came in to like stop the run, for example, like your Dietrich Wises, who again I think can be a good pass rusher, also are a serviceable pass rusher. Your Goldmans, even your Kinlaws, for example, like they've kind of done what they're supposed to do. Like you feel Goldman, like you feel his quick hands, you feel that first step, you feel him sitting double teams. You see Dietrich Wise, like today, I don't know who he was going against, he like absolutely blasted the tight end. Like, you know, one of those ones where it's like, as a tight end, I've been in this moment where you're like, this is, I don't feel good. Because his hands are in your chest and you can't quite get him fit because he's a longer, taller guy than you. And
you just feel like shivers when you're on that sideline, like
yeah.
you just like backs of PTSD.
I'm like, damn, that's not good. You know, like, and I felt that. I know what that feels like. Well, and those guys are doing what they're supposed to do. I think you've seen like the flashes from Lamar are great, and he's been a little bit more consistent than I thought he was going to be. Like, there are times where he's treetop tall, he's looking over the block, and he gets double spot. But I think his athleticism, his work rate is much better and consistent than I thought it would be, and he does flash. And you pair that with some of the guys on the edge, you know, your Holmes is, right, his ability to kind of do what Dietrich does, right? Your Jacob Marley to set an edge. And then, like, their ability to run and pursue is also really high. So, like, they had a play today where they're running like a GT, which is like, you pull the guard and tackle, you block down on the front side of the run. And I was like, oh man, they got a crease here. And Drazan did a great job of fighting off the center, playing over the top, and would have made a tackle for loss. Like, even though the crease, like from where I was standing, looked like it was there. So they're just being really active, really aggressive. And some of those additions that were kind of sleeper free agent moves feel like they're starting to kind of fit into those roles. And again, obviously guys like Devon, like you feel his pop, you feel his burst. So I think there's a lot of things to be excited about. It's just the interior, but like on first, second down, I was like, man, this is a fun group. And then when you get the third down, just how they're marrying that with Frankie as like a spinner or like the pressure package, and then you know that Vaughn's going to one-on-one. Shoot, Dorrance Armstrong, man. Like I didn't even talk about him, but like he is flashed every single day. He's flashed every single day, rushing the passer or finishing the football or whatever. And I just feel like that dude's poised for a big year. So like he was on what was the first day of pads? That was yesterday.
Yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, he was in a 2-point stance over the guard. They ran a pressure, gets a one-on-one, quick win, would have been a sack, And so like just love seeing these guys find their roles, find their opportunities, and then fill those roles at a high level.
Yeah, for sure. The last thing, or one of the last things I did before I left and took off the radio show the last couple of days is we did a 53. Dude, doing the D-line 53 is a nightmare. Like, there's just too many dudes. I think we wound up like cutting Jacob Martin and like one other guy who you just mentioned somewhere in there playing really well. Like, there's just too, like, it's great. And obviously there's something to be said about still the lack of a stud, like A-level player, unless Drazan develops into that. Obviously Vaughn used to be that, but is not at this stage in his career. You're hoping he can be in the limited snaps, but to be that true, like, all-pro caliber, you need to be that on a more consistent basis, more than 15 to 20 snaps a game. But the depth that they have is fantastic, and the roles that they need to fit, I think is going to set them up to be pretty good this year on that front.
Fred Anderson Hyundai of Greer, where Hyundai buyers go for lower payments, easy financing, and the family plan, giving you lifetime full payments.
Buy with 0 APR, no payments for 90 days.
Fred Anderson Hyundai in Greer.
Starting at $4.49, you can get one, make it a double, or go for 3 delicious patties. Go as big as you want. My combo starting at $4.49. Now you can say you're loving it and actually mean it. Get so much more.
When you talk about Drazan specifically, like Payne's another guy you didn't mention in there. Like Payne, I think obviously needs to be, he needs to be really good. Like, how much more developed is Drazan in year 2 compared to, like, obviously training camp last year, we didn't see him, but like when he got started to work in the beginning of last year, but especially by the end of it, have you seen a jump in his game, or is he kind of picking up where he left off?
It feels to me like he's kind of up where he left off a little bit, and it's interesting watching him next to Kinlaw, next to Payne, next to Golden. Like, you feel those guys when they're on the field. You feel the physicality in a little bit of a different way, and I think he's still kind of finding his way a little bit. You know what I mean? And not a bad thing. I just think he's he's still developing.
Perfectly reasonable for a second-year guy in his first ever training camp.
Yeah, still learning. And so like today, he made that nice play on the GT, which was awesome. But I'd say he's been relatively quiet. But again, like, it's hard to watch defensive tackles right through kind of the mesh of everything. You're like, well,
from the sideline view.
Yeah, and Kinlaw like flashes because he's big and he runs fast. You're like, oh, what's that? Or like Duran, for example, he snaps that guard, like you can see it, right? And so like those things pop out to you. But, you're kind of watching the coverage, you're watching the linebackers, you're kind of feeling that defensive line when you're looking through. So I don't want to make any like definitive, declarative statements about where Drazan's at, but to me, it feels like he's kind of on pace from where he was last year. Hopefully, he continues to improve. And again, preseason comes around, like, I think he can make some splash plays, which would be really exciting.
Yeah, we'll see. I think we have a much better feel than that. All right, to the linebacker level. You mentioned Madrano with the pick.
Yeah.
Obviously, you feel like Bobby's probably still Bobby Wagner. I know Lulu's been all over the place. What have you seen from the usage and kind of how... I think we're deep enough now that we have an idea of some of the pairings and some of the roles and how they want to use those guys at the second level, even if they are finalized.
Yeah, man, that group is like so much fun to watch. Like I just it's a joy, like, to watch. Just again, you get Bob, you get Frankie, and Frankie's kind of used in like these pass rush roles, so blitz a little bit, like, kind of the roles you'd expect. And Bobby's Bobby. They've kind of given him like a pseudo bet. They felt like he wasn't taking all the reps. So Jordan McGee, Dominic Campbell, and Kane got a lot of reps today. And I mean, those dudes are like little pit bull puppies, man, fighting over a bone, dude. They are motivated. They're all out, all run well. They've all got great physicality. Like, Jordan McGee had a great pass rush today. He's like dipping the edge and ripping under the tackle and, running down the running back on the next play. And then Tommy Campton had a great, like, A-gap pressure where he kind of walks back and stops, like, right from the quarterback, probably would have been a sack. Or walks the running back. And Kane, obviously, with the pick. And then just all of those dudes are like, they're to cover backs and slot receivers and tight ends is pretty special. Now, a guy, you just made me think of it, talking about Kane. Like, Kane had some really great one-on-one matchups today with Colson Yankoff, because obviously Tyree Jackson's out, like, he hurt his shoulder, so didn't practice today. But Colson Yankoff, man, like, runs this choice. Kane, I don't know how he did it, undercuts it, almost picks it off, right? And then next series or earlier in the practice, Colson's running the corner, catches it, Kane's underneath, tags him off, but would have been a catch. So a guy that I just want to shout out on the offense because we missed him. But that kind of backup linebacker group, man, is just fun to watch because they are like, they're great athletes, they're long, they're crazy fast, they can play the football really well, and that's going to be really interesting to see who kind of finds a home in them.
Yeah, it's cool to see that the things that we thought could happen are. Also, that little brief segment from Logan brought to you by UCLA. That is Logan's Bruins Corner. Oh, look, the two UCLA guys are going against each other. I wonder why Logan mentioned that one. When you look at the secondary, Owens has been kind of the story of camp, I feel like, in that he's doing more than people anticipated. And obviously, that kind of happens this time of year where the talking points are what happens relative to expectation versus like, oh, this guy's actually been the best player. It's just like, oh, that guy's surprising. We're looking for things that we didn't expect. So beyond Owens, what has stood out to you? Obviously, I think we should check in on Lattimore. Sanderstill's name, I feel like, has come up a lot. So how are we feeling about a group that I felt like had the most volatility, a chance to be really good if some of the pieces worked out, but also the group that kind of scared me the most defensively as we were entering camp?
Yeah, and so today I thought Tyler Owens, because like you mentioned first, like he kind of went back to more of a traditional safety role, and Kevin Seymour was kind of that big nickel guy. He's a big dude, man. He's very, very tall. Yeah. Anyway, so, just kind of like we were talking about, they're kind of shifting roles, trying new things out. That's awesome. Their dime package today was all watch because they had Harris at the nickel, they had, Mikey Harris at the dime, Mikey at the nickel, and Percy and Quan in the back end. They can cover a lot of grass with that group, man, and just are some good football players. So, I think you're talking about, I think this is the group actually that's driven training camp because of ability to cover and disguise stuff, right? So, like you mentioned, kind of the four starting safety type players there, like even Rebo, man. Like when he's on the field, like you hear him, you feel his experience, you feel his communication, and it's just been a much deeper than I would have anticipated. Like I don't know if it's the second year in the defense, but they're just sharp. They're just sharp with the communication. They're sharp with the alignments. They're sharp with the positions. Sanderstill, man, he had a one-handed interception yesterday, or was it yesterday? Yeah, where he like jumps up, like Odell Beckham, the ball comes down with it. Like his ball skills are tremendous. And you're starting to feel that from the rest of the group. Trey Amos today had a great PBU on him and Luke McCaffrey battling, and he just kind of looks like like classic Benjamin St. Juice, like where's the ball? Like, nope, look up with the ball, knock that thing down. Like the most routine play of all time, even though it's really challenging. So I think all those guys, to me, that's the story of camp, right? Is not just Tyler Owens, it's the entire secondary, how well they played, how competitive they are, right? Like Marshawn Lattimore looks great, to my opinion, right? Like competitive, tough, strong. Then you see the burst, you see the intuition. So again, like there's no true number one receiver out there right now. Noah Brown's had a pretty good. Like when Noah's out there, you feel Noah's burst, but Marshawn Lattimore is a pocket man, a go ball, and it would have been a tough catch, for Noah. But Marshawn's right there does a great job, kind of making the catch even tougher. So I can't say enough good things about how well that second group has played. Like even the guys down the line, like Ben Nichols, the way he's taking the running backs, the way he's playing man coverage. McDaniel, is that the guy from the UDFA, number 47? I'm messing it up.
I'll look.
Yeah, but like he had a nice play today where they were trying to throw a seam, makes a break on the ball. I don't know if it's coaching, and maybe you got to give coaching credit. Maybe it's a second year in the system. Maybe they simplified the rules, but that group looks insanely confident at the moment.
Love that. And 47, yeah, Robert McDaniel out of Jackson State. I guess the last question I'll ask to wrap up here, and this might be a tough one, and you might say wait till the preseason, but the run defense is the thing that matters. Like all this pass stuff is nice, and we'd rather it go the way it's going than be like, I'm there. No one's talking to each other except for to say, hey man, what happened? Like we don't want that. But we know that the big defensive focus this offseason, based off of the results of last year, was rightfully the run defense. Are we still in too early to category, or are we starting to see some improvement in team run on how the defense is scheming that up and ultimately executing that scheme?
I think you're starting to see guys who are more consistently winning one-on-ones, you know, like in the run game. Like that was something they talked about last year, is guys just losing those opportunities. And like when we were good, guys won one-on-ones. When we were bad, guys didn't win one-on-ones. And that's because they're not
Funny how that works.
not playing the right technique, they're not in the right position, whatever it is, right? So I do think you feel them a little bit more. You feel their urgency, you feel their size, you feel their physicality, specifically on the defensive line. Because again, like when that group's playing well, like Bobby, man, like you know he's gonna fit the run right. You know what I mean? Like he's gonna be in the right position if that group's doing a good job. So as of right now, I feel optimistic that it's much better. But again, that's one of the things where it's like, is that real? Like we're not tackling ground, right? So it's like, are you gonna make that play or are we not gonna make that play? Is that too wide? Is that a bad angle? Like this looks like a good fit, but maybe it's not. And so just a good example of that thing was like Krosky Merritt had a run on it was a power. I think it was a power maybe a trap where they're pulling the left guard of the offense. And usually that run's gonna hit in the right A gap. He's like really patient, kind of winds towards out the left A gap. And I'm like, I don't know if like defensive line would tackle him, but it looks like a lot of air there. That looks like it's like a 6 or 7 yard gain at a minimum, maybe a little play. So there's stuff like that because there's no wrap up tackle. So
Right.
yes, I think it's better. The consistency, I think, will reveal itself in the joint practice and in the preseason.
Yeah, if you look at the missed tackle numbers for the D-line last year, like that was a pretty significant part of that as well. So the ability to actually finish it, we're gonna have to wait for real game action to see. But we are scarily close to real game action. We have like 10 days, I think, till the first preseason game. So we will obviously preview what we want to see and kind of who he's going to play towards the tail end of next week. Or maybe we might shift around the schedule around that. So we'll figure that out. Probably getting close to a first 53 roster projection as well on our show.
Everyone's doing those now. Well, we haven't even much preseason game yet. How are we supposed to?
I think it's nice to like understand kind of some of the like how close are we to if there's no injuries, like knowing like how many guys are still in contention.
So I think a lot of guys, and it's because guys have played well. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like knowing.
When we say a lot, like there's 90, they got to get to 53. Is a lot 63? Is a lot 73? Is a lot 58? Like when you really start making those cuts, like how many guys are really in consideration? Like I think that's a fun exercise. So maybe we'll do that next week.
Okay.
And obviously, if we don't do it next week, we'll do it ASAP after the first preseason game because that actually probably feels more appropriate. But we're doing a podcast. We do what we want. That's Logan Paulson. I'm Craig Hoffman. I'll be back on the radio Friday. We also have the Art Case stuff to follow the next couple days as well. City council meetings are happening, and then the vote is Friday, so we should know the fate of the Commander's future home by Friday. So we might talk about that a little bit next week on the show as well. So keep an eye on that, on the Terry stuff, and obviously what's happening on the field. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy this, then subscribe. Because that's what you should do so you don't miss it because you like it. Remember, that's where that sentence started. Okay, that started. This is where the podcast ends. I'm gonna stop right here.
Coinbase continues to be the safest, most secure place to hold or trade your cryptocurrency. USDT withdrawals are operating as normal. If you need to move funds on or off Coinbase, you can easily make a transfer to your bank account, debit card, PayPal, or wire transfer. Coinbase holds customer assets one-to-one, and we won't lend those assets without your consent. This means your crypto is your crypto, wherever and whenever you need it. Take charge of your finances and experience the difference with Coinbase. Sign up today.
Feeling healthy, by leaps and bounds. Dinner that takes that whole day and giving your best friend the best nutrient for their best life. Science did that.
It's time to command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulson and former Commanders beat reporter Craig
What's up? What's happening? Welcome in. It's the Take Command podcast. I am Craig Hoffman. He is Logan Paulson. He is, he's where he always is, in Ashford, where he lives, which the Commanders are having training camp. I am in Columbus, Ohio. So I have not been to training camp the last couple of days, meaning like I am most of all of you. I've been following on social media and have a lot of questions about what we've seen on the first 3 days. So very excited to get into it. Logan, how's camp been over the first 3 days?
It's been fun, man. It's cool. Guys back on the grass and just watching it, and like all the conversations we've had about the team this off season, like kind of you're getting data points. And again, like I'm a big believer in like training camp's one thing, preseason's another, and then obviously like what you're actually going to be doesn't really happen in the season. But again, it kind of informs roles, kind of position battles, a lot of people from the coaching staff, and I think it's a lot of fun just to be watching football and learning. Again, like I was thinking about this today, like how blessed I am to be able to go watch practice and just see how the best people in the world structure practice, they emphasize at each position group. It's pretty cool, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Training camp, by like week 2, it's like, oh man, we've been out here a lot, whatever. Obviously, it's different. It's even more so for the players. You guys, I'm sure I'm sick of running into the same people over and over and over again. But I think that I always really appreciated being out there the first couple of days of training. Just have to miss it this year. Just the energy is amazing, and you get that, and then you'll have the awesome day on Sunday where the fans are out there. Like that's always a really special day. Fans are super hyped up. But like you said, on like the more structural, functional side of like true data points, you also reminded of some of the guys that you may be not giving enough credence to. A guy like Chris Paul will talk about getting some reps with the ones at right guard. So like there's some fun stuff to get into, offensive, defensive, and we'll get into as much as we possibly can. I will say the one big difference between me not being there and most of the fans listening not being there, Logan, is you're not texting, as far as I know, you're not texting all of our listeners your notes. So I just had, I was actually at the gym this morning when you were texting me, and I'm just getting like a stream of consciousness of little notes from Logan, which was fun. So we'll get in. I have a sense of what's going on from that. I'm excited to dive in. But I feel like we did this last year as DQ was taking over, but I think it's really important, one, for new listeners, and one, for old listeners to reemphasize the structure of how Quinn builds during training camp. Starts off relatively easy. They're not even in shells. They're just in helmets. The practice was like 60 minutes on day 1. It was 75 yesterday. I guess, was it 90? Was it a full 90 today?
It was about 90 today, yeah.
Yeah.
It started at 8, so they finished around, 9:30.
Yeah, so they're ramping up into it. It's just smart to make sure that you minimize injuries. You get guys readjusted to being in cleats for those that haven't been doing as much work in cleats the off season. Like there's a million things that go into why this is smart. But as a guy who went through this and probably also didn't go through this, I'm sure there were some years you just dove right in. Coaches are excited to get going. Why is it so important for you to see this structure and how you use one of things?
Yeah, I think back to like even his press conference on Monday and how important he said the ramp up was, and that's the ramp up you're describing. Like every day there's a little bit more field volume, every day there's a little bit more length of practice, more reps, all those types of things. But I think the thing that stuck out to me most is like, that's smart, like from a straight and conditioning standpoint, right? But like one of the things that I always find is difficult for coaches to manage is like actually how you structure practice to accommodate that. So, I think it was Monday was the first, what was the first day of practice? Wednesday? Was it the first day of practice?
Wednesday, yeah.
Yeah. So it feels like a million years ago now. But like one of the things that I really appreciated, and I've talked to other strength coaches who've done similar things and try to get this information to the head coach, but they haven't been able to learn from it. It's basically like you can still get a high intensity, high focus, high speed, quote unquote practice, by shifting into certain situations. And so I think that was the thing that was most interesting about Wednesday was like the red zone. And red zone is very challenging, right? It's deceleration, acceleration. The players are super focused. It's very competitive. Like there's no, like if you were to watch it as a fan, you wouldn't think, oh, this is a light day, quote unquote, right? Like it feels very intense. But the thing that they're doing a good job of is mitigating total high-speed guards, right? So like when you get your GPS data, they have a category of high-speed guards, and that number, if the volume there gets really high, you have a really high likelihood of kind of soft tissue injury. So like what I like about it is like first day, we shorten the practice, but it feels fast, it feels quick, it feels really focused because we're doing real football stuff. We're doing like real situational football. And so again, it's just limiting kind of like that intelligence when it comes to structuring practice is extremely smart. And so I think that's something that I really appreciate. So not only is there a really smart kind of physical element to it, I think there's also, like, we'll talk about this more in a second, like, he makes it fun. Like, the types of drills they're doing in team are also a little bit different, especially as the week goes on.
Yeah, it's part physiological, it's part psychological, right? If you're a team that really wants to emphasize on football, it's like, okay, day one, situational football, what's up, let's go. Like, we're working in Kings Field, we're working in red zone. And also, you're not going to pull your hamstring because you're never fully opening up. And, like, that is really, really smart on both ones. And I don't know which one he would say is driving it more. Like, yeah, we want to do red zone. You're going to see a huge, he said, like, you're going to see a big red zone. So I always love when he comes out with his opening statement in the press conference. He kind of preps us in the press for what we're going to see out there on the field on any given day. But like you said, the conditioning side of it, we're like chatting bars, and obviously the players are probably appreciative too. But it was also just that, like, hey, this is really, really important to us to work on it first. And I feel like that's very different than a lot of other things that I've seen where, like, no, we do first and second down first because that's the base. And
Right.
that's, Dan's willingness to do things a little bit different has huge, huge benefits.
It's so interesting, because I coach high school football, and so you're always talking about practice structure, which you want to emphasize, and like you only have a certain number of reps, right? Like as much as people want to say, oh, they practice a lot, they have all these walkthroughs, they have all this film study, that's all a certain number of reps on the field. And so how do you maximize that? And I think just giving those guys plenty of opportunities to feel confident, feel comfortable in these situations. Yeah, like I like how you pointed that out. It's two-pronged in terms of benefit, right? Like one is that you're physiological, right? But also, I think just the mental emphasis on this being important, on the throwing numbers. In some ways, I think it's really good for the quarterback, because you start off with a really high level of difficulty in terms of doing those throws. You have to anticipate at a high level. Like the intensity for the quarterback from a mental standpoint is turned up to 11 from day one. And I think there's a lot of benefit to that because then as you transition to the field stuff, the windows get a little bit bigger. So all that anticipatory background that you built up is now made to bear in a really nice way. So I really like the structure. And then I think the other thing, just to back on, is like today they did a drill that I thought was really cool. It was like offense, you get a first down. Defense, you get one play, stop it. And then you go first, second, third. And that was like the first team thing that they did today. I thought, that's great, man. Just talking about
you texted me about this. So it's like a third down and in whatever the yardage is. And the first team offense, first team defense, and they get one chance to get a first down, then it's
Right.
2s on 2s, 3s on 3s.
Just one play, right? And it's just like, did you get it? No. Okay, next one. Did you get it? No. Next one. And it was really, I think that's really cool to kind of start the practice off because it's like one of the things that, like, as a player, just thinking back to my time, is like you get in this thing where it's like, okay, we got team run, we got 9 on 7, we go 7 on 7, and then we go to team, right? And so you kind of, I don't want to say you slog through the beginning because I really enjoyed those elements of practice.
Those are good shit.
But it's not competitive. It is competitive that I'm going against somebody on the other team and I want to do my job. But all of a sudden you bring the whole offense together and you say, hey man, like it's a game. We're keeping track of the score. Like who's good? Like the first, second, and third team offenses get first down versus the first, second, third team defenses. And I think that's a great way to kind of say like, oh shoot, like we got to be up and ready for the next elements of practice because what they do right now is going to team run like everybody else in the NFL does, but to kind of prime the pump. I thought it was great. Then they finished practice today with another drill that I thought was great. It was like a move the ball. But you kind of start in second and 10, so then you get a first down, then you get a new down, then you go, basically from the 25 into goal. And so I really like that also because it creates this environment. You can kind of feel the energy in those periods. Wake up, moving the ball, like the defense is talking a little bit of mess, like the offense is getting a little bit stressed. Like I think that's great. And when you're in a culture talking about competition and breeding that environment, you gotta like live in the fire a little bit. And I love that they emphasize that. Beginning of practice, they emphasize it in the middle, just to kind of keep guys locked in, and then have a competitive 2-minute situation at the end too. So I love that structure of practice. I think it's really great. And again, it kind of like Dan talks about being good at situational football, being hyper competitive. You see the emphasis in terms of how they structure practice, and I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's definitely different. I mean, I spent most of my training camp days were Jay Gruden training camp days because that's when I was on. I actually saw some of Ron's camps over the years. But with Jay, like, it was kind of nice as a reporter in that, like, it was very predictable and I knew what was going to happen every day. It was like, okay, we have individual periods, then eventually the Indies going to turn ones. Like, I still remember like those hot days in Richmond. So it's like one-on-ones, and then you go team run, and then you do this, and that, and then eventually like there'll be a move the ball run and 11 at the end. And you kind of knew where you were in practice based off of what was happening, and the flow to it. That was nice in its predictability, but like is limiting because you're working on the same stuff, and there's only so much you're working on certain situations. Like sure, the move the ball drill might change a little bit on a given day, but often it was like all right, now it's kids basketball practice. Where it's like, all right, guys, let's scrimmage at the end. And it's like there's 5 minutes left or whatever. And so to have that situational work earlier on and to keep it fresh, keep it fun, keep it mentally engaging, like it's just gonna make for better because guys are gonna be locked in at a different level versus that feeling of going through the motion. It's fine for me to go through the motions as a reporter on the sideline. Okay, this is the period where I'm allowed to take video and send it out and get on the social media. Great. Like super locked in for that. And for the guys, like you gotta be super locked in on all the details to learn it at a high level, and ultimately, when you get to the fall, we'll be performing it at a high level on Sundays. Anything else from the structure that you wanted to point out before we dive into some of the details of the defense?
Yeah, I think just one thing that sticks out to me, and again, like you don't really feel this until you watch a lot of football practices, it's just the tempo feels really good. Like the energy of practice, there's little music playing, guys are kind of talking around, but there's energy in between drills. Like that's something that is really hard, I think, to hold them to grow, right? Like it's really hard to cultivate, and there's like a sweet science to it, and Dan does a good job of it. So like, like just as an example, I'd be willing to go to a seminar to hear about structure that. Like how do you make it so guys are like moving quickly? Because I've been part of staffs who yell at you for it, and it's a little like, oh, these guys suck, I don't want to do that. But there's also places I've been, like I think back to San Francisco 2017, where it was like, oh, there's like this is free out here, and so that's something else that he does a great job of, and I think the whole staff does, quite frankly, just kind of like, because there is some monotony to camp, and it's still relatively fresh, but today was the third day, and I was like, man, they look.
Chevy is called the heartbeat of America, like the people who keep this country moving. For them, only America's most dependable will do. In every Chevy truck, dependability comes standard.
There's a little pep and stuff still. The legs aren't heavy, and maybe that's part of it. Structuring practice so guys are fresher throughout, so the energy's good. But I think that's another thing I just want to call attention. It's like this urgency, this energy. It's pretty cool.
Dear fellow reporters on the beat, who I know listen to this podcast, any fun question for Dan Quinn? Any fun one for the press conference? You could ask him. Guess is it probably starts in the meeting room and like starts with the position coach being like, hey guys, just remember, we're out there. Like this is who we want to be. Like we want to play fast. We want to get out there. So that means we're on the hop in between drills. Like we're getting where we need to be. Play calls are coming in. Like we're lining up with purpose. And then as long as your leaders do it, then you're good. I mean, I think back to last year when Bryson Tremaine like wasn't holding that up and DQ like really got on him. Like he's never having to get on. I'm not saying this to be like he never had to get on Terry, right? So this year with Terry not there, like guys like Debo, whoever, like I'm sure they're getting on the line quick and they're doing what they need to do. And obviously, something we'll talk about in a second is the command that Jaden has of the offense. And so like the fact that Jaden is like, he's on top of it. There's no time to waste. And he also can tell someone like get up there, get online, or hey, you're in the wrong spot. Like that ownership that he has on the offensive side has to help, and we'll get into that more in a second.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing, like just, I was thinking back to yesterday and today, and even Wednesday too, is like Cleveland Farrell is like a sneaky, really good leader on this team. Like talking about a guy that's like, hey, we're going to pass rush, and he is sprinting. And so it's the first day it was like him by himself. Next day it's Frank Lubu and Dietrich Wise, and they're kind of like racing over. And then today it was 5 guys, right? So like I think, when you build a culture, you talk about bringing in the right people. You mentioned Jaden Daniels, but there's also like these like leaders that kind of carry that mantle for you and buy in. So I think that I literally had like a smile on my face because I was like, man, that's just fun. You know what I mean? You just kind of like mess around with the boys, and it leads to this thing that you're talking about, this kind of energetic, emotionally positive practice.
Yeah, it could have just been also Cleveland being like, I'll race you.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're 5 years old again. And that's a whole lot of fun. All right, let's get into some of the details, some of the early position battles developing, all that kind of stuff next here on Take Command. Take Command podcast. I'm Greg Hoffman. He is Logan Paulson. Let's dive into the side of the ball, Logan, that everyone came into camp having way more concerns about, but through 3 days has been the better side of the ball in burgundy and gold. Although, are they wearing burgundy or are they wearing white in the
I'm
practice?
trying to remember. So white is offense and burgundy was defense. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're wearing the burgundy. The defense has looked fantastic from everything you've been telling me, from what I've seen in the media. They've done a good job trying to confuse Jaden, Marcus, and the quarterbacks. They've done a good job in coverage. The pass rush, there's been some real highlights. As Von Miller gets out there and gets accustomed, guys like Javon Kinlaw lining up in interesting places. What do you, biggest thing taking away from the first 3 days of practice when you think about the defense? And if I just ask you, not hypothetically, because it's a podcast, I'm just going to ask you, what's the thing that from the defensive side of the ball you walk away thinking after 3 days of practice?
So I always have to caveat this anytime we're talking about defense is everything you said is 100% true. But just remember that because of how defense is installed and because of how offense is installed, sometimes the defense gets way ahead really quickly. So for example, they had some zero pressures in today, the defense, right? So that's straight man, there's no safety, we're just bringing pressure, right? And I'm not sure if Cliff in the offense has installed zero responses yet. You know what I mean? Usually they've got some type of screen, some type of quick outlet, some type of, hey, we're going to go full slide and pick it all up. There's different solutions, but usually those things don't happen until you get a little bit more, deeper into the playbook, right? Because you don't expect to see that so early. So I just want to put that caveat out there. They seem to be at different spots in the install, and sometimes that leads to a big discrepancy. However, the thing that I've really been impressed with the defense is really, quite honestly, is the secondary. The secondary and the linebackers have looked outstanding, and that's the first and second group. So obviously, Marshawn Lattimore, Trey Amos, all Noah Igbinogheni's done a great job, kind of playing outside inside. He's had a lot of contested catch opportunities where he's played through the hands and been in tight, sticky coverage. Tyler Owens in that second group kind of playing nickel, which is something that I wasn't really
We're going to have to
expecting.
come back to that. That's
Yeah.
a huge story.
Yeah, so him playing true nickel, so he's matching up with receivers, and he's also playing in the box, and just that role. And we were talking about who the big nickel was going to be, big kind of in our preview show, and we mentioned him briefly, but to see him kind of really embrace that role, I thought was kind of interesting. So that was cool. Will Harris, I think, has looked great. Quan Martin, I'm not kidding, they've done a great job in the secondary of being hyper aggressive in man-to-man situations, really aggressive in man-to-man situations. Playing good techniques, disguising coverage as well. Today there was an interception where, it looked like it was two-man. They both dropped out. It was really kind of one robber, one rat. One of the safeties rotates to the middle of the field, and the other safety kind of becomes a hook player. And Tyler Owens made a great play on the football. I think Will Harris had a similar play where he tipped it up, and Mike Sanderson gets an interception. They just look really sharp, and that's the linebackers too in coverage, right? And that's Dominique Hampton with the second group. Bobby Wagner has an interception today. There's a lot of really good stuff that they're doing, and how tight everything is. There's not a lot of air in the coverage, right? So usually man-to-man coverage, you see a guy kind of get routed up on the release. And, oh gosh, there's a little bit of space, but here it's almost like they're Velcro together. Now they've got a couple, DPI calls, but I would prefer that at this point of the offseason, and this defense being hyper aggressive, hyper emotional, kind of in terms of the energy that they're playing with, which is fantastic. And then you couple that kind of with, I think, a defensive line that's rushing the ball at the moment. You know what I mean? And again, there's some issues in terms of on Thursday, is this run going to be a touchdown? Are they fitting it exactly right? But the coverage in the back end has been tremendous.
That's really good. That was definitely my biggest question coming into the year. How does Lattimore look? How does Amos look? Two outside guys, Lattimore, injury, and age adjacent. But again, I thought it was an interesting point that really, I feel like you think about watch last year for Lattimore when Rizzuto was on the list. He was the highest ranked guy for the first 6 games, whatever it was, before he hurt his hamstring. I thought that was a 2018 thing. But to see just how good he's still, but obviously being comfortable with his hamstring and being able to fully trust his ability to cut and run is going to completely change the confidence that he plays with. But then Amos is a rookie. Like, he's going to have moments this year because that's being a rookie in the league. But if he can, in between the moments, be really good, like, that totally changes things. And, to hear you talk about the air, the lack of air, that's a terminology we used last year talking about the Eagles, and not this week. Eagles defense of last year by any stretch. But, like, the being on a string, that's what makes a really good pass coverage unit. The ability to disguise, the ability to be on the same page. And then I think that, like, the upside potential about this team is, like, they do have a pretty, on the back end, high level of athleticism. Like, Quan Mark is a sick athlete. Amos, Sanders still small, but he's a freakish athlete. Like, his RDS was a 9.9. It is, and the only reason that it wasn't closer to a 10, like it was a 9.91 instead of 9.98, is because they take size so they can grade you. And so to have that
Tyler was a 10,
to have that level of speed and athleticism, plus the brains of Bobby Wagner in the middle, like, that's really exciting. The one thing that I would say though, like, how much of this stuff was man versus zone where a lot of these plays were being made and a lot of issues were happening?
So I think a lot of it, at least today, and yesterday too, like a lot of man coverage, like just straight, like one plug, like one lurk, one rat, zero, like, it was, like, they have a good feel for what's going on right now offensively. And, like Noah Brown's not practicing, obviously Terry wasn't here, so like there is an element, of that going on, but it just, like, you need somebody who can consistently win first man coverage. And, like it was interesting, like watching Marshawn Lattimore yesterday, like how he, like, kind of, it was number 19, I forget his name at the moment.
Was that Chris Moore?
Chris Moore kind of was running in, like, the strength of the jam, the anticipating the in cut. Like, it would have been an interception. It was 7-on-7. Like, Jane Daniels kind of pulled it down and booted it out and then threw it over his head. It was kind of a broken play. I think it's unrealistic. I think if you look at the beginning of the play, you're like, oh man, great play by Lattimore. And to see that kind of confidence from him, I was just really impressed with him. You talked about the movement skills. So a lot of really positive things coming out of the defense, I think, at the moment. And we'll see, like I said, it feels like they're a little bit ahead from the install. I think the offense, like inevitably, like day 6 or 7 catch up and it'll look great and all that kind of stuff. But man, I've just been, again, like Quan matching up in the slot. Will Harris, man, he's looked great, on fits and stuff. Like, he just looked really locked in. So we'll see how that looks when the pads come on. But from a coverage secondary standpoint, that's been my biggest takeaway this time today.
Yeah, that would be my two things. Like, minor point, the pads on the outside matter less than they do on the inside, but they don't not matter at all. Like, the physicality level can go to a different level once pads are on. Sometimes that favors the defense too.
Also, for me, like, what I mean by that is, like, when you're a safety, like, you have to be of two minds a little bit more, right? I have to fit this run, or I'm the Nick to fit this run and cover this guy, right? Like, that's where, to me, it gets a little bit like when you're kind of, when the pads run the ball more consistently.
Or if it's a lot of 7-on-7, there's no running forward.
Yeah, correct. Mm-hmm.
So you have that. And then, like, if it is coverage, the reason I initially asked is because it's like, well, there is.
When you ride with a good neighbor, you can ride confidently, knowing you've chosen the coverage you want, and you get a local State Farm agent who's ready to help. Quote today.
Time for a spring checkup? Trust the experts at Authorized Heating and Air. Save $25 now booking your appointment. AuthorizedHeatingandAir.com, your trend comfort specialist.
There is one large story that we touched on 25 minutes in, and is that 17's not there, and that's the biggest leverage point that his side of the argument has, is that it built it into Adam Peter's office to be like, so, if teams are playing man against you, who's winning? If my guy's not there, and what's that worth to you? And I think we're gonna see it until he's there, because like that is the reality of last year. Like that is true. Hopefully Debo can do some of that, but like Debo has never been a super man-to-man separator type of receiver. That's not the guy that's gonna exploit space, get him in space, and then he's impossible to tackle. That's what makes him really special. especially Noah Brown's not practicing, like the big physical ability to like just trust, hey, it's one-on-one, the coverage is good, we're gonna throw it up and Noah's big not bad happen. It might be like the worst case scenario is probably an incompletion. He might draw PI, which he was unbelievable at last year, and then the obvious Terry being the best guy one-on-one. So I would hope that Marshawn Lattimore's best, if he's healthy, is able to lock down the caliber of receiver, respectfully, that's out there right now. And I think it's encouraging that like everyone else is too. The fact that Trey Amos has looked good, and it's not like there's scrubs out there and there's athletes out there. Guy like Luke McCaffrey's a great athlete, so that Marshawn can like run with him is a good sign. But he's not Terry, and like nobody else out there is Terry, one of the 10 best receivers in the league, and so that should, especially in a lot of man-to-man happening, favor the offense, or sorry, the defense in a pretty major way.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and it'll be interesting to see, like kind of if anybody of this like second group, quote unquote, kind of like a playmaker versus man situations, because I thought, there was a couple opportunities where I'm like, oh, this is like a good ball. Like there was one today where like Chris Moore ran like a high cross, if I remember correctly. It was a good route, coverage was tight, but like Jaden like laid the ball in like perfectly, and he had a shot at it. It would have been a really tough catch. So don't get me. I'm not like criticizing him here. Right. Like if you get someone in the offense who can start making those plays like a little bit more consistently. Like Zach Ertz, like was the guy on Thursday, right? He was making these plays versus man-man coverage. And that's what we come to expect from him, right? He's really good in those situations. When there's not a lot of other people, like for example, Strachan, number 84, like goes up, really like jumps, big jump, like navel to helmet kind of jump, jumps up, 2 hands on the ball, and you're like, oh, this is like, because a lot of the opportunities that this offense cultivates are 50-50 shots down the field on go balls, right? Like that's what they like to do. You see that production last year. These shot plays down the sideline was in Kias last year. And he goes up and really, I'm like, oh, that's this guy. That was fantastic. That's exactly what you want to do here. Kind of bobbles it, he loses bounds, ball comes out, and like have been the tenor of those opportunities, like really tight coverage, really either super accurate ball, great play by the receiver, we just haven't finished it. And I think like to your point, like I like what 84 is bringing to the table, right? I like what Moore brings to the table, but like if you want to play varsity full, like you got to show you can make some of those opportunities. And again, it's a third day camp, guys still getting their legs back under them. But those are the things that I would point to is like saying maybe the defensive production inflated, but what I would say in counter to myself is like the techniques are right. Yeah, man usage is really good, the physicality is really good, and the communication in the back end is very sharp, right? There's a lot of motions, a lot of things to get guys' eyes in the wrong places. They're communicating very, very well. And I think like that just, they feel like a different group a little bit. It's a two defense. And so like that's where I'd say like, yes, some of these guys like coming back and doing things like Noah, for example, look like, but it does feel different than it did at any point last year.
Yeah, that's great. And you sometimes have to just live with making it really hard on the offense. Like, okay, if you're going to make plays, there's only so much we can do. This is like when you face the Eagles, like that's all going to happen. But so maybe you have to make a play yourself. But I will say, and I want to get back to the offensive stuff, obviously, and some other things that I've heard and seen that I wanted to follow up with you on in a second. But offensive side of it, it does feel like they've actually made those plays. Like there have been a ton of turnovers from what I understand. And I'm just curious what, like, is that, again, the confusion, the lack of, like, great opportunities because there's not a great man-to-man separator? Are they confusing Jaden? If so, is it, like, probably playbook-oriented, or are they just taking, like, disguises and some of these man-zone shells and all this stuff to a different level this year?
When we talked about Joe Wade Jr., I think at his core wants to be an aggressive, pressure and coverage team. And I think the guys have done a good job. Like, I'm watching practice, I think of player, right? I'm like, what coverage still are they in? What coverage do I think it is? What coverage is it actually? And I think they do it typically. So they did a good job of kind of disguising their variations of man. Like, it looks like 2 man, actually 1 plug, or it's like 2 man, it's 1 lurk. And the way guys play leverages, the way they're able to pass stuff off and shift. It was something we talked seeing and kind of actualize. Like, instead of having to like shift the nickel when there's a motion, it's like, no, we're just going to rotate the safety down, and the nickel's going to kind of become the whole player, and the other safety's going to stay high. Like having coverage guys like that is really fantastic. So that has been cool to see. So I think there is a schematic element to it. I think the personnel at least seems to be playing better. And I also, again, I feel like there is a little bit of, like there's a little bit of a defensive edge in terms of what's in, but I think they're executing it really well. And so, like, kudos to Joe Wood Jr. and the staff for getting people where they need to be and playing at a high level. So, like, and again, it's the third day of training camp. And I already talked about this. Like, training camp is one thing. Training camp is one thing. Preaching is another. First week of season is the other thing, right? So this is still really early, but in terms of positive signs, like I feel like there are some positive signs, defensive secondary, linebackers, in terms of how they're playing their coverages at the moment.
For sure. A couple guys I wanted to follow up on real quick, and then we'll get to the offense a little bit more, or in a little bit more detail. Let's circle back to Owens because his name, or the way you take notes, I'm getting a lot of texts about 40. He seems to be everywhere, and we've talked about him quite a bit. It's like, let's not get out over our skis on Tyler Owens in the offseason. He was an undrafted free agent. He was unbelievable on teams. Playing teams is very different than playing defense, but if he can take, because of his athleticism, like he's got a chance to be a good NFL player on the defensive side. That was never off the table. And it seems like mentally he has really picked things up and could be some kind of steal for them. It might have a real role defensively as opposed to just waiting for fourth down to go run out there and hunt coverage and try to take something out.
Yeah, I think you're looking at like what's his best situation, given that Will Harris is here and Juan's here. And like for him, like I was like, man, you're always going to be a little bit lacking in terms of coverage in man-to-man situations. And I think, he's done a good job answering that call. Like they put a ton in. So that's another thing. I just want to we'll see how the mental side of it progresses as we go. But his ability to move and run and utilize his length in terms of staying attached to receivers. And again, there's been a couple of holdings, a couple of PIs, but I'd say on the whole, the movement skills, understanding route concepts, has been much better than I thought. Right? It's obviously not like Mike Sanders so good, but it's pretty darn good. And so for a guy of that size, you're like, he's kind of, to me, like carving a role, saying like, maybe we don't want Mike Sanders to live in the box all the time. Like I can do that, and I can match with the tight end, or I can match up with a certain type of slot receiver. Like he had some really good, like very competitive reps with Luke McCaffrey. Like 50 balls, back shoulder balls, and they were really kind of physical. And thought, man, like that's good work there. You know what I mean? So again, like that type of stuff for him is really interesting. Is like the flexibility it gives the defense, and then the idea of that athlete, like you alluded to, taking a larger role. I think is also really cool. So definitely gonna keep an eye on him. As when the pads come on, because like coverage, man-to-man coverage is one thing. Like coverage and run fits is a different thing. And so like how that progresses for him over the next couple of years.
I'm curious to talk about what happens when more gets in. Like for the regular season, you don't have to put a ton more on. You get a very small package, and that could be a way to get his athleticism on the field in certain situations that are advantageous without having to have him with the entire playbook. Obviously you need to know it because he's a depth piece. You always need to know if you're on a roster and you're ready just in case. But in terms of like ideal situation, featured role, they could carve something small out and let him really own that section of the playbook. Javon Kinlaw, I wanted to follow up on him. Obviously it's early. We'll have a lot more on the lines once the pads come on. But like, is he gonna play inside? Is he gonna play outside? Like the elephant end. Is he a 3? Got Payne and Newton. Those guys are probably a little bit better at the 3 with John Allen gone. So what are they doing with Javon Kinlaw so far, and what kind of stands out from him in these first 3 days?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the size is the first thing that jumps out to you.
Still huge.
Yeah, still huge. The snap that he plays with, like when he's when his hands are good and his get-off's good, like it's good, man. Like I think there's times also where you see him get a little high, get a little, like kind of looking over the block, and you're like, that's the stuff that's going to be hard for you to like overcome because like NFL offensive linemen love when you do that. Like, how does that progress over the next couple weeks? I think he's got a little nose with the first group, is what I would say. And again, it's hard to see the exact spacing of the group.
Is he nose? Is he shade?
Right. But he's like Theron's definitely the 3, and then he's either like a 2-eye or a true shade. So that's what I've seen from him. And in the second group, he does play 3 technique a little bit, like him and Johnny kind of rotate through there a little. So. And then on third down pass rush situations, like he had a rough day with Von Miller where like he's run like an old school, TE, where he goes first, like does the atomic rip under the guard's arm, and then pulls that guy into the tackle like Justin Smith and Alvin Smith back to the 49ers in like the early 2010s kind of era. Like that strength to pull that guy with you, that physicality to kind of bump off the tackle and then Vaughn get in there for what I think may have been a sack. Obviously Jaden Daniels is a magician, so we don't know for sure, but like pretty clean rush. So like the size, the physicality, and then I think the fact that he is kind of playing more of a nose is interesting to me. And it'll be interesting to see how that, because again, this staff does such a good job. I hate to say like, oh, he's doing this today, because every day they kind of like, oh, you do this, and I want to see you this, and this is your rep. And so they do a good job of making sure that they get a look at everybody where they kind of make their decision. But as of right now, that's showing up. And again, like get a bull rush, I want to say on Wednesday, where it was like he like forklifted like old school chest the guards on skates. He had to like stop because the guard was so on their heels, gonna fall into the quarterback. Like that kind of stuff. When that flashes, that
And it was
pops.
Coleman, right? It was like in just a house of a human being. I know I don't think that caught a lot of people's eyes. So maybe it was a different guy.
I don't remember, but again, like those types of splash plays. Again, we talked about how important those are. Can you make them more consistent, high level, consistent hand placement? I think you can. It's just about like the reps in practice.
Yeah, I think, just the last thing to wrap here, we talked about some of these structures and different ways that we use players. And it's kind of like, in some ways, it's the most fun thing we can do in the off season and this time of year, because it's like all the possibilities. Ultimately, you have to start narrowing down the possibilities and see which ones are going to work. And we're not at that point in camp, so it's fun to see them experimenting with so many of the things that we all were thinking about all off season long. All right, let's wrap the defense there today. We'll obviously do a lot more early next week, and we'll be able to talk a lot about more about the line of scrimmage that has come on. Let's hit the offense real quick for today.
So why is helping me get my money right to achieve my ambitions? Like earning more money, my money is a headshot. Ready for service? Thank you so much to earn a higher APY and an epic welcome bonus. Getting your recipes right takes extra care. Wholesome believes that starts with organic sweeteners from strong farming communities. Because enjoying our craft together connects us across tables and continents. All the best for all. That's Wholesome.
Wrapping up here on Take Command, that's Logan Paulson, Greg Hoffman, and we're talking about the Commanders' offense, which, as we've been talking about from the defensive lens, has had some bumps in the road on the first couple of days of camp. This is what happens in training camp pretty much every year. Defense gets a little bit ahead, offense finding its. Obviously, this is an offense currently trying to operate without its top two receivers, the top two outside guys. Noah Brown taking a vet days, he's coming back with injury, or 2 vet days. Terry obviously holding out. But one of the first throws of camp was a touchdown to Deebo Samuel. They're finding ways to get it done. Obviously, I think the biggest encouraging news that I've seen is Jaden still seems to be very good at football. Logan, what stands out from the offense over these first couple of days?
Yeah, I think Jaden does look pretty well. Today obviously we mentioned Friday.
Yeah,
was probably the day that struggled the most. You know what I mean? Like in terms of again, like zero pressure, getting protections called. Like, and it's hard for me to say you can struggle because I don't even know what's game. I think that's the problem. Right. It's like where are they in their install cycle versus the defense, and maybe the defense is a little ahead now. Because I thought on Monday or on Wednesday.
Can we pause on that for a second? Like, if you're a head coach, you know what's going on both sides of the ball. It's like something like, why would you let that? I'm asking this like non-judgmentally. Why would you let that happen?
So I think you would do it because like as an offensive coordinator, I have things that build off each other, right? So like for example, like I want to make sure that we're talking protections. I want to make sure our 6-man protections and it's ruled out first, because if I don't put the 6-man protection in, then the 7-man protection doesn't make any sense, right? And I like, so you know what I'm saying? Like there's levels to it. And so I've never worked with Cliff. I've never been in his offense before, but I remember with Kyle, like he was every year on year was pretty dogmatic about like this is day 1, this is day 2, and because it follows a teaching progression. And so like inevitably, like this happened. The same exact thing happened in 2012. Like Jim Haslett put in rain, which is their all-out pressure, and we didn't have an answer for it. And I remember
and
Kyle
his
was
teaching
like,
progression that could happen on like day 1 or day 2.
it happened on like the 5th day, right?
Yeah,
and so
you
like
guys didn't have the answer.
we were like boned, and I remember making a And like Kyle was like, yeah, don't worry about it. Like we'll have an answer for that in the season. Like that was his like demeanor. It's like, yeah, don't worry about it. Okay. So we'll figure it out. We'll have an answer. We can run this play. We can do this. And in the meeting he talked about it, right? He's like, oh yeah, we can do these 6 things. Right. And we're not going to do that now because we haven't gotten it. Like when we use the screen, that was day 7 install for him. You know what I'm saying? Like so, to me, it's just like think about it. Like you're teaching. You know, everyone talks about the volume that's in NFL offense, and now you're teaching a lot. And so, like, most times there's foundational blocks that kind of do this bigger thing. And down the road is the stuff that gives you nuanced answers versus some of these more technical pressures. And that's the other thing about pressures, too, specifically in training camp, is oftentimes you don't, we don't, like, for example, when I was with Kyle, both times, and you don't game plan your defense. So, like, if they're putting in a crossbar, you might breath them. They're putting in crossbar in the install for protections. It's not like you go to individual and you just rep crossbar 1,000 times. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So like in the season, if you're facing a Mike, and you know those double A gaps, blitzes are coming, and crossbar is one of them. The 2 linebackers are going to cross each other and then try to come straight up the gut. Like you're probably going to do that in individual drills. Like that's what it means when we're talking about game planning something. But you're just working on basic, like, hey, a rush is coming at us. How do we pass this off? That kind of stuff in your individuals. And then the same thing, once you get into the teamwork, is like you have to pick up that. So because the teaching progressions don't line, they're not based off of each other, you wind up with inherent mismatches if the offense runs into the drills.
Yeah, correct. So like on Wednesday, the offense put in a bunch of they put in like 2 man beaters, right? And so they look pretty good on that day, right? But then they don't put another one in till Sunday, let's say. I don't know the install schedule. Yeah. But the defense knows those man beaters now on Friday. I'm saying, like, there's just, and again, you don't want to rush the progression. You want to get ahead of yourself. So I think that's part of the reason this happens every year. It's happened every training camp I've been a part of, every training camp. At some point, the defense is going to be way ahead because it's easier to install. I was talking to Fred Spritt about this. It's like, we're going to run cover 2. Like, we might tweak a little bit from last year, but it's the same install. Like for the offense, it's like you got to go over every position, talk through the rules, talk through the front. It's a little bit more nuanced, a little more complicated. And so I think that's where you see maybe a discrepancy in where the defense is at and where the offense is at.
So with all that said, picking back up where we left off, Jaden might not have all of the answers, but seems to be operating well in the places that
yeah, I think you see, it's good stuff. So, like, we talked about how tight the coverage windows were. Like, there's times where he's, like, trying to squeeze the ball in, and it's like, oh, no, I can't get this ball over the top. And, Bobby Wagner gets a hand on it and gets intercepted. Or, like, hey, like, there was one with Marcus today where I was like, this is a straight-up good disguise by Tyler Owens. Like, it was like, it looked like 2-man. They played it like 2-man outside, So they played it like man coverage underneath. And then he tried to throw a strike on a high cross coming across the field, and Tyler Owens, who was kept high, just triggered like an absolute lunatic and intercepted the football. So like that disguise is good, that coverage is good, like good job defense. Like that's something that Mark is going to file away and be like, okay, I just got to make sure I check the backside safety because that's something they're going to do. And again, like if you were game planning our defense, for example, I would know that's in the bag, right? I would know that they run their like 1 rat or 1 lurk like that, right? So that's where I kind of say like training camp for offense is a little bit more difficult because like again you're not following the same thing all the time. So but yeah, I think the defense is doing a good job. I think they're making it hard on the offense. Some of it's schematic and some of it's how well the defense is playing. Like you got to give them their flowers. They're doing a good job making some of these plays also. So.
Yeah, for sure. All right, a couple of guys that are worth clicking on. Unfortunately, a couple of the biggest fun. Like how's Coleman doing? How's Connerly doing? The young guys on the offensive line. Is it worth even commenting on at this stage, or is it just too far without pads to really have anything?
I think Connerly's figuring some stuff out on the right side. Like he kind of played predominantly left tackle, and I think he's going to make the transition to right fine. But his ability to like move around in the run game is great. He's still figuring out his pass protection line, like where it needs to be, like how deep the kick needs to be. That's stuff that rookie players need to figure out. Like I think he will. Not that
especially on a new side of the line.
Correct. Coleman's been harder to watch because he's playing guard, but I will say Tunsil looks as advertised. Like him in pass protection man is something special to watch. Like the way he just glides back there is like bolt like his feet are both splitting that pass protection line every single time. Like he never gets unsquare, like he never opens his hips. Like I remember when I played with him in Houston, but like that's been really cool to watch. And again, they're not in shoulder pads yet, so there's still some physicality stuff that needs to be worked through there. Zach's looked great. John's done a great run game with limited opportunity because they don't have pads on. Tyree Jackson made some plays today. Poston Yankov has made some plays, and that group in general, that they always kind of
about saying because that's the one everyone
didn't score a touchdown, Dave. Did a good job versus man-to-man coverage, right across the face. Had one with tight coverage with Kane Medrano, where Kane did a good job. But again, like that's training camp, right? Like I'm trying stuff, I'm working stuff out, and he made a play, and Kane made a play on one, and so what? Good job. We're getting each other back. I think watching him run around, he looks good, he looks in shape. So that's good. And I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that really stuck out. Oh, Chris Austin blitz picked up today. Another pass, but like you can hear that clap from the stands, like that's always cool. So I think overall the offense, the playmakers kind of feel like they reside more in the tight end group right now, just from where the balls are distributed, they're being distributed versus man-to-man coverage. And then the backs, it's impossible to tell because like that's one of the positions without pads to evaluate. I think the offensive line looks solid. I think there's some growing that needs to happen for Connolly, but again, that's to be expected. And then I'll keep an eye on Coleman when we go out, and I'll let you know exactly how I feel about him.
Yeah, Connolly starting mostly with the two, or pretty much all with the two so far. And I think that's to be expected. Like, you know, it's one thing when it's Trey Amos on the defensive side and there's not really an incumbent there. But like Andrew Wiley is an average NFL right tackle. And so if you're better than Andrew Wiley, you deserve to start, and you're going to be better than average at right tackle. Or even if it's close, right? Because then he'll get the reps and get the experience and you'll see is higher. But you got to get to Andrew Wiley's level or close to it first. And yeah, I would expect a rookie changing size to take a second to get there. And again, that could be 2 weeks of training camp. But it is unsurprising to me that he's starting with the twos. And, you know, I think Kime said this on his show, which I thought was this is just like well phrased. It's like, once you make Jaden Daniels earn it, for the rest of Adam Peters and Dan Quinn's time here, what other rookie can possibly come in and be like, nah, man, I deserve my starting spot. Like, come on. Jaden had to earn it. Everyone else can earn it. And so this is a part of the competitive culture. For last guy, real quick, Debo, who's obviously a huge part of the offense. And I referenced a little bit earlier that first throw. And from what I was reading on social, it was like a choice takeoff, which is a really cool thing for Cliff to put in. Whereas like ever has run these choice routes, is really good at them, obviously the short area quickness. And so with choice, you break in or you break out. And this time, Debo broke up, and Jaden's able to put a dot right on him, and it's a way to get explosive plays downfield in an offense that outside of Terry didn't generate a ton of them last year. De'Ami got a couple obviously later on in the season. But I thought that was a really cool thing to stick in the back pocket that hopefully we'll see at some point this season. I know he got a couple jet sweep looks. I know that's going to be part of the offense. But what have you seen from Debo? Now that he's in shape, but everyone's happy. By the way, great chat with his trainer Nick Hill on Time's show about just like how silly that whole thing was. Where it's like, yeah, in the middle of May, he was in his like, I'm getting back in that kind of shape before I slim down for the season. So now that he's back in prime Debo shape, how's it going?
I think it looks good. I think, you know, obviously, like anytime there's a new receiver in the building, I think this is one of the maybe the benefits of having Terry not here. You gotta work timing. And so like they had a slant where wins on the slant, ball's a little high, and he can't wrangle it. It would have been a good catch, could have been a better ball, but like working that timing, he had like a man-beating kind of angle return on Thursday and kind of slipped. His feet weren't exactly right. And, you know, the thing about that was like right immediately after he's with Coach Ingram, and they're working, you know, like great how the should have been and why he thinks he slipped. And I love that there's that kind of like awareness to be like, I gotta get that better. But you know, that would have been the touchdown probably if he didn't slip. And so he's made plays, he's made some nice catches. Just like there was another one where he wins on a high cross, winning versus man wins. The ball is just a touch out in front, you know, because so he can't get there. So like there's been just good stuff. Like, when you watch him, it's good. Like he looks like he's fit, looks like he's in shape, running good routes, crisp. You see him like ran a kickoff return back today, like man, he's got some twitch and burst to him, which is awesome. Just getting, I think, on the same page with the quarterback. And again, it's the third day of training with him. So versus these tight man looks, like, I think that's something, a relationship that still needs to grow and to build, and I think it will. And but in terms of how he looks and how he moves, definitely, I think we're good about it.
And fans, you can see it on Sunday. Practice is open. One of the few that they're having. this training camp, so you can check that out. We will be back early next week, probably Monday or Tuesday. We got to see what the schedules are looking like. And we'll recap another few days worth of practice. We do have a couple of lingering mailbag questions. If there's not as much to talk about, we might get one of those in. But appreciate everyone sending those in. Probably done taking mailbag questions for now. So if you didn't get it in, put it in like an email draft and schedule send it for like let's say next March, late March. Gotta get through free agency. But anyway, we appreciate you guys doing that and listening all summer long. For those of you that took summer break, you want some more take, man, you're like, wow, this was fun. Those mailbag episodes are kind of evergreen. You can go back and listen to whatever you want. So go back and check those out. But we are full steam ahead. 2025 season is here. Off day on Saturday and then back to camp on Sunday. Logan will be out there. I'll be sitting here for another couple of days. So we'll do some more of this. If there's anything you guys do want to know that we haven't asked about or asked about, feel free to leave a comment on YouTube on the episode and we'll try to sneak that in. For Logan, I'm Craig. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time on Take Care.
Chevy is called the heartbeat of America. Like the people who keep country moving, for them, only America's most dependable truck will do. In every Chevy truck, dependability comes standard.
This from PJ to start the show. PJ writes, Kevin, I'm an old radio guy. Play the hits, dude. Don't let guys like KP move you off your mark. The name is the game, and anybody with a brain knows it. I'm not really into you or any of your guests telling me how good Josh Connerly looks in shorts. I'll make up my own mind when he goes up against Dexter Lawrence and Abdul Carter in the season opener. Thank you, PJ. Appreciate it. Good morning, everybody. The mayor was on with the Junkies this morning. If you missed it, we will play some of the highlights of the conversation they had, I think, in studio, right, Chris? She was in studio for this? Yeah, so we will play some of the highlights of that conversation at around 11 a.m. Ben's going to join us from training camp at 12. The team is on the field as we speak. Dan Quinn met with the media before practice began. No Terry McLaurin. His holdout now reaches day 3. So lots to get to. But real quickly on PJ's email, I actually think we have moved past the name being, the play the hits. Play the hits is a radio term that every program director that I've ever worked for and anybody else has ever worked for. It's about playing the hits, meaning you want the A topic is played over and over and over again because it appeals to the most people. And yes, the name, without question, appeals to a mass majority of people. But there has to be that drives it. We had it on Sunday with the Trump tweets. We're now Thursday in week 1 of training camp. And it's not what I would call an obvious game today. But thanks for the advice, PJ. By the way, I don't think that Josh Connerly would be matched up against Dexter Lawrence. Dexter Lawrence, who is clearly one of the best D linemen in the league, is really inside nose tackle, D tackle. So he's going to be matched up, against Abdul Carter, against Brian Burns. The defensive team. Their issue in recent years when they've had talent defensively is they've just been on the field too much because offensively they've been so poor. So the Giants, went out and they drafted Jackson Dart. They signed Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, by the way. And they're hoping that they can be better offensively. I thought Tyrone Tracy as a rookie last year was a bit underrated among the young backs. Remember they drafted the Arizona State kid, Cam Scatteroo. Devin Singletary still on that team. And they had an absolute star wide receiver in Malik Davis. This is a guy who caught well over 100 balls as a rookie with terrible quarterback play. So if they improve their quarterback, I don't think they're going to be an easy out. I don't. I think their offensive line is solid. It's all about quarterback with the Giants. And we know the NFL, year to year, month to month, week to week league. Nobody in Washington last year winning 12 games, and nobody this year has the New York Giants winning more than 6 games. So I think their over-under number is 5.5. It might be 6.5. But they have talent. They've had talent for a while on the defensive side. But anyway, PJ, that's not going to be Dexter Lawrence shouldn't be the guy lining up opposite Josh Connor. Abdul Carter, yes. Brian Burns, yes. Some of their outside. Thibodeau, yes. Thibodeau is probably in his final career, right? I'm guessing. I would think, is Kayvon Thibodeau in the last year of his rookie and they didn't pick up the 5th-year option? I forget all. The division's going to be fascinating this year because it's, for the first time, actually, it's Philly and Washington when the time we heard that. He signed the extension last year, Thibodeau?
Signed last year for 3 years, 25 weeks.
Okay, my fault. For whatever reason, I thought that we were in a make-or-break season for Kayvon. He's talented. There seems to be a bit of an issue there at times. The division's going to be great, though. Washington, Philadelphia, obviously the clear-cut favorites. Philly, the clear-cut favorite. Washington, the clear-cut favorite to finish second NBA playoff team. And then Dallas is a bit of a wild card. They've got to be healthy at quarterback all year long. And we don't know what the new coach, Brian Schottenheimer, will bring. They have talent, and so do the Giants. It'll come down to whether or not, Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson, Jackson Dart can play quarterback. Because if they have any sort of significant upgrade at QB, they could be a tough out. We'll see them in the opener. By the way, that line's down to 6.5. Opened at 7.5. Now a 6.5 point favorite. Week 1 against the New York Football Giants. There's one other email that I wanted to return. It was very interesting, and I thought thoughtful email about the name in particular, and it comes from Mark. I did have it in front of me just a few minutes ago. Oh, I don't hear it. Mark, Kevin, I'm like you. I grew up a huge Redskins fan, went to games with my dad and brothers at RFK, lifelong diehard. I have to admit, I'm now name agnostic. I'm the only one in my family and among my friends who feels this way, but the game changer for me was Jaden Daniels. The winning season great, but Jaden Daniels has made me lukewarm now about the name. Until last year, I never thought I would feel the same way about this team unless it went back to the Redskins. I was wrong. But don't get me wrong, I want the old name back, and I hate Commanders, but watching our city's team repped by the best rookie quarterback of all time pulled me back in. Martin, that's awesome. I'm glad you feel that way. I totally respect the way you feel. I feel differently. But there's no doubt that last season, and I talked about this, the day after the Detroit win in particular, that just felt so good. Win in Detroit in the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. seed and a heavy favorite in the game. You go on the road. There's something so thrilling about going on the road in the postseason and winning. Something Joe Gibbs did all the time. You know, Gibbs was such a great big game coach. His playoff record says that. But so many of those wins came on the road. You know, his playoff game in version 2.0, 2005, playoff win in Tampa. I mean, right, first playoff game coming back, you know, year 2, they go on the road and they get a playoff win in Tampa, and they won in Seattle the following week. There is definitely something thrilling about that. I remember coming in here the day after, or the Monday after the Saturday night game against Detroit in January, saying, this is close to feeling like I used to feel. There was something about DC and our football franchise being wrecked, as Martin, you described. And I think it's interesting that what really was the quarterback as much as anything else. And by the way, that makes sense to me. I think the passion, the increased passion from those that had lost it last year, if you were like Martin, it probably had as much to do the excitement around a superstar quarterback and the understanding that it's just the beginning with Jaden Davis, that there is more to come, and maybe a decade plus of this to come. But yeah, there was the win over Detroit last year for me was the #1 memorable moment of the season, and there were so many to choose from. So many to choose from. But going on the road in that high profile of a game, the Saturday night national televised game, Brady's on the call for Fox, it's the lead team, it's, you know, the Lions and Bateman and that stadium being as ginned up as it was, and to take it to them the way we took it to them, and I say we, it felt more like we that night than it had in 10 years. You know, in your description of Jaden being a part of it, think about the Mark Brunell playoff team. Think about the Kirk Cousins playoff team. Much different in terms of the excitement around it than it was for the RG3 2012 season or the Jaden Daniel 2024 season. The Detroit game for me is #1 last year. That was my favorite moment of the season, by far. But Martin, your family, dude, you have lived it, you have felt it, and if you've come around and you are now lukewarm on the name and you bought in, more power to you. It's happened to a lot of people, and it hasn't been to a lot of people. It's the lecturing from people who have never felt it like you have, Martin, that is the most.
Onboarding benefits, time off requests, fixing payroll, gas system.
Was that necessary?
No. Paycom automates everything. Get Paycom and make the unnecessary necessary.
You know, painful to listen to. Not painful, but just it irks, I think, a lot of us. But good for you. And I think there are plenty of stories like that. I still think the mass majority feel the way you could sense they felt, you know, on Sunday and Monday. But who knows? I mean, winning big with a superstar at quarterback is the best scenario. And I've said this many times about the loss of the name back in 2020. It was actually the best time, if the name ever going to go away. The fan population of this team was at its lowest in 2020. I mean, to piss off the fewest number of people in 2020 because so many people had exited already because of the losing and the embarrassment and the owner and the whole thing. So, the Detroit game for me last year was #1 in terms of the best memories of the season. I really did feel that night as close to the way I used to feel as any. I'm not back to where I was. I'll probably be super pumped next year when they like our team. I'm talking about 2026 for 17 weeks out of the season. I think that's going to help, no doubt. I think the organization made the right decision. They should bring the logo back as well. But in looking at all of the games last year, Cincinnati Monday night, that was the first big moment. That was the first memorable moment of the season. 3rd and 7, the bomb to Terry for the touchdown to give him at the 26 lead and essentially ice a game of Monday Night Football coming at party for Jaden Daniels. The Hail Mary moment against Chicago on October 27th, late afternoon tip. You got the sun starting to set, and here's Jaden running around buying 8, 9 seconds, and then letting it fly. The deflection, the DB who is over, mocking the fans, getting into the play late, Noah Brown catching it. That was an incredible moment. The Dallas loss in late November when Jaden hit Terry with 14 seconds to go on an 86-yard pass. I mean, it was actually more improbable than the Hail Mary. The fact that Terry took a pass and went 86 yards to make it 27 to 26 and 14 seconds to go in the game. That was a moment. It was a loss, so it's not really at the top of my most memorable games of last year, but what a moment that was. And then we get into December, and clearly the Philadelphia game at home. So down by multiple scores, entering the 4th quarter, turning the ball over 5 times, Jaden willing them to a 36-33 win. The Atlanta game the following week, coming from 17-7 down at halftime, the drive in overtime with Jaden strapping the entire team to his back to win that game. How about the season finale, which was a game that was significant for seeding, but Mariota's in the game. They decided Jaden was probably the worst half of football that he played all season long. Dallas really bothered him in both games. And Mariota comes in, and on the final drive of the game, they go 11 plays, 91 yards, and you got him on a read option, 4th and 1, taking it 30-some yards, and then throwing the touchdown pass to Terry with like 3 seconds to go in the game. I know that that was not a significant game. We're already locked in playoff-wise. Seeding was still in play as Chicago and Green Bay were playing at the same time. And then we get to the playoff games. The Tampa game, certainly on the short list of the most memorable games of the year. What a football game that was. And to drive it, 10 plays, 50-some-odd yards, burning the entire final 4.5 minutes, and having our guy, Zane Gonzalez, doink one in from 37 yards out at the gun, make 23 to 20. What a football game that was. How good was Jaden in that game? But for me, the number one memorable game of 2024 was the game against the Lions. That was a moment which was unexpected. Washington was a 9-point underdog going into that game. Detroit had the bye week. They were rested. They were a 15-2 football team heading into it. Yeah, they were banged up on defense. We knew that heading into the game. But the back and forth nature of the game with the scoring, 31 to 21 at halftime. Martin's interception, Samuel's interception at the end of the first half. Detroit's turnovers killing them. They went away from Jahmyr Gibbs, which was insanity. And Washington basically just scored almost every single time they had the football. Jaden threw for 300. He ran for 50-something. Brian Robinson Jr. had the best game he had in and Washington rolled up 45 points on the road in the playoffs to completely quiet the crowd. By the way, if you've not watched quarterback yet, the Jared Goff, a quarterback. It's Burrow, Goff, and Cousins on Netflix. But that playoff game, and Jared Goff's wife, who is a 12 on the scale of 1 to 10, and she's in their suite with other wives of the players, and don't get it done, it's over. And this wild ride, this exciting 18-week ride, 19, 20 weeks in the case of these teams, is over. And you could see the pain that Washington had inflicted on that fan base, on those players. It was glorious to watch. Detroit, playoffs, divisional round, for me, the number one memorable moment of 2024. Obviously, that's way January 4th. I understand. What was number one on your list last year? The number one memorable moment or game from the 2024 season? 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Great news on the stadium that broke yesterday towards the end of the show. Mets worked out into a tweet deal with the team. A vote is more likely than not, going to happen late next week. It'll pass easily. I've been told multiple times, at least 10 votes. They only need 7. And the RFK plan will be off and running as long as the president doesn't get in the middle of it. And 2030 is the date, and there will be a Super Bowl within 10 years. Final Fours down the road, World Cup games down the road, maybe a college football title game down the road. Who knows? Plenty of great concerts. They're not going to fear coming to D.C. anymore. They'll have a facility. We are still 5 years away from that being a reality, but it'll be fun to watch the project grow, and it looks like it will be finalized by the city council late next week. That is great news. But 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. What's your number one moment from 2024? For me, it's the win in Detroit, and there are, close moments that were considered, but to me, that was the moment that was the most exhilarating, and to be on that stage for the first time in a long, long time. They had not been in the divisional round since 2005. To be in that final 8 weekend, to be in that highlighted Saturday night primetime spot, and to be on the road and to go in and do what they did, offensively in particular, with a rookie quarterback. That was the moment of the season for me. What was yours? 301-230-0980. Listening to the Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980. You can also listen to us on the team980.com. And we are viewable every day on the YouTube page. Get there, subscribe to us, and hit the like button.
Want to take the next step with Entivio? Then it's time to talk to your healthcare provider. With Entivio, you may be able to pay as little as $5 per dose. Our team can help connect you with additional support programs.
Quality, meet convenience. Everguard quality, now self-adhere and primerless. Just wipe, peel, stay. Everguard TPO Primerless Coating. Only from GAF Commercial. Building around you.
Nobody likes a cracked windshield.
Look at that.
But you can go to SafeLight.com and get it fixed now and pay later. Awesome. SafeLight come to you for free. Don't wait. Get it fixed now and pay later at SafeLight.com.
SafeLight repair, SafeLight replace.
Show. My name is Grant Mitchell, and we are here to talk about everything that went down in Washington Commanders training camp on this beautiful but sunny and scorching hot Tuesday. Before we jump into our topics, which do include the standout training camp up to this point, the Commanders' first-round pick having a bounce-back day, and seventh-rounder getting reps with the first teams. Guys, before we jump into that, I gotta say, I so deeply
Hey, let me find out about the deal run first team again this year. As the Washington Commanders is not only giving Bill first run opportunities now, but they're running
Get the Fred Anderson Family Plan, now available at Fred Anderson Hyundai of Greer. The family plan includes lifetime oil changes, loaner cars, and more. Keep it easy at Fred Anderson Hyundai of Greer.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you might want to double clench your butt cheeks real quick, and I really wish I could say psych right now, but it's one of those nights. You don't have to like the video, you don't have to subscribe. Let's jump right into it. Looks like we may need Detective Booklow don't be rolling those fat doobies. Brother ended up rolling like 20 tons of doobies out there, man. That's wild. But check this roll.
So Trump did actually make comments about Epstein.
Well, I haven't been overly interested in it. You know, it's something, it's a hoax that's been built up way beyond proportion. I can say this, those files were run
You're welcome, bro.
by the worst scum on earth. The whole thing is a hoax. They can put things in the file that are fake. Those files were run by bad, sick people. They were run by my enemy. Anything in there, they would have used them for the election.
I just don't know why. If you thought they were run by the enemy and you thought they had altered the files, then why would you bring on multiple people into your staff as cabinet members that advocated for
Facts.
It just doesn't make sense.
And another argument here, and what Trump said, one of those points is valid, as in, because this is something that I've seen you guys also talk about it too, that, okay, if it's true, if Trump actually went to the island, or he was in the files, the Democrats would have released him. Good point, solid point, I agree with that too. But the counter argument is the big one on this one. It's probable that even the Democrats are actually in the files, and that's the reason why they don't want to release it. That was the point back then, and now we know it's true because Trump recently said that Bill Clinton is on the files and he went to the island 28 times. Not an opinion. This is not my opinion. This is not an opinion. This is what Trump said previously. And Bill Clinton, part of Democratic Party. So it makes it makes more sense why the Democrats also don't want to release it, because their politicians are also on the files. Now, forget about like whether, or it's not forget about it, it's more like, okay, I know some of you believe it, some of you don't believe it, and it's not about that, whether you believe Trump is on the files or in the files or went to the island or not. It's more so than now the fact is Trump mentioned that Bill Clinton went to the island 28 times. And these politicians, okay, some of them are still governing us. They are governing us, okay? They've done some of the most heinous crimes with kids, with children on that island. And guess what? They're walking free, some of them already, and some of them are currently still are governing us. There's no justice served. Okay, so if Trump on the files, or if he's on the files, if he went to the island, if he didn't went to the island, there are tons of other politicians, not from the U.S. Alone, but politicians from all around the world on the files, not just on the files, actually went to the island, done those heinous crimes, and they still are governing us, and justice not yet served, and nothing is being done about it. Goes to like show you like the complexity or the weirdness of the situation. Not necessarily the weirdness, that's the wrong word. There's another word that I'm just like, I'm actually searching for a word that I can say on YouTube without, you know what I'm saying, because there was another word that I was gonna say, but I cannot say that word on YouTube. So, but yeah, man, like justice needs to be served. The files need to be brought forward. Whether Trump is on the files or not, whether he went to the island or not, this is bigger than just Trump. Guys, focus on yourself. Put God first if you're a believer. If not, well, put your family first. Put yourself first, right? Put your country first. Not the politicians, man. Put yourself first. Because left, right, whatever, like, bro, like, left, right, same wing, man, same wing, same bird. You feel what I'm saying? So,
sense. He's alluded to, like, you know, Prince Andrew and Bill Clinton being involved. Like, that's the issue, right?
I don't do drawings. I'm not a drawing person. I don't do drawings. Sometimes people say, well, you do a building and I'll draw 4 lines and a little roof, you know, for a charity stuff. But I'm not a drawing person. I don't do drawings of women. They say there's a drawing of a woman. Do you know that my poll numbers are 4.5 points since this ridiculous Epstein stuff? So, because people don't buy it. And
I just feel like they'd be up by 10 points if you just posted it and it implicated people that you thought were implicated like Bill Clinton.
Yeah, a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island with Jefferson.
This is, but I don't like this.
And we want to focus on trade deal. And by the way, I never went to the island, and Bill Clinton went there supposedly.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Like, Bill Clinton, yeah, he's saying Bill Clinton went to the island. Why is justice not being served? Why is nothing happening to Bill Clinton? You feel what I'm saying? Nothing happening, as in why is he not behind bars? Why is he not, brought in court? Why? Where's the justice system? I mean, it proves the point. Rules for thee, not for me. Rules for the poor people, for everybody except for the elite.
28 times. I never had the privilege of going to his island, and I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to his island. In one of my very good moments, I turned it down. I didn't want to go to his island.
At this point, so much of this doesn't.
Privilege, never had the privilege. A lot of people from Palm Beach were invited that went to the island, but he didn't. Okay. They release the files, release the names. This is insane, bro. Like, damn, yo. Those politicians are still governing us, man. Like, it's wild, bro.
It doesn't make sense to me at all. I think one of Trump's biggest strengths is his ability to read a room and effectively figure out what people are thinking. What's weird about this situation with Epstein is that it's like he's totally off base with it in a way that I would have never expected.
Check this out. Andrew Schultz slams Trump. And real quick, forget, shout out to the homie Don Gaming, Jean-Yves, and Rachel. For re-becoming members on the channel. Appreciate the homie Matt, the homie Gary for the 5. Shout out to the homie Steven for the 10. Thank you guys so much for all the love on the channel. You guys gotta do none of it, man. I appreciate all the super thanks, the tips, and all that. It means tremendous. Thank you. Let's actually get to it. Roll it.
He is rebuking the base, like almost like spitting in the face. Like they are asking for it. He campaigned on it. He puts Bongino and Cash in there, which might be the strongest thing in the history of the world. Like
the homie Cash, but no Patel, man. Damn, bro. Like the homie Cash, he said psych and he just wanted me, man. He said psych, bro. I ain't gonna release the files no more. I'm a piece out. He got deuces and he out.
why would you put the two guys that are non-stop pounding the pavement talking about how we're going to expose this Epstein thing? Because they're like, you better shut the fuck up. It's a go and Rogan lie. It is a very peculiar thing. It worked in that I moved any of the smoke off of Trump because, at least for me, I was like, there's no way that he's involved if he's putting Bongino and Cash in who aimed on exposing him. Like, why would you hire those guys? Appoint those guys, right? So I'm like, he can't be. But the fact that he will not touch this, and this last week him doing the distractions, bro. Trump and the MLK file. Like, who asked for the MLK file?
I'm telling you, MLK files are, now they're out, right? Okay, now it's good that MLK files are out. Yeah, we demand answers, absolutely. Release the alien files, release the UFO files, release everything. Release the 911 files as well, release everything. But also, release the Epstein files too. One in the comments, if you demand answers, we demand answers, we demand answers. One in the comments, if you demand answers, if you don't demand answers and you believe the government 110%, you know what I'm saying? Gonna get the jabs, gonna get the peaks, okay? I'm gonna close my eyes, close my and just believe everything they say, alright? I mean, if that's you, man. Nothing to yeah, I mean, if that's you. Put it in the comments, let us know, man.
And you start talking about Obama, I was like, oh, he's guilty. Yeah, I'm like, for the MLK. Yeah, and the second you start talking about Obama, I was like, oh, he's guilty. Yeah, I'm like, why are you talking about Obama and treason? You got a guy who has sex with teenagers.
Whoa, bro, chill.
That you were protecting.
The Epstein stuff is so crazy because when Cash Patel was on here, and he was like,
the homie Cash, but no Patel, bro. He pieced out, bro. Like, he pieced out.
like, there's nothing. And I was like, what are you talking about? Yeah. I didn't even know what to say. My thought was, and people are like, why push back more? My thought was like, I'm just going to put this out there and let the internet do its work. Because there's nothing I can... I'm saying there's no tapes, there's no video. That doesn't make any sense. Everyone knows it doesn't make any sense. Don't look at us nuts. And then he's like, well, we have a film, we're going to release that film. And the film has a minute missing from it.
Yeah.
Like, do you think...
And then they said 3 minutes were missing, bro. They just said 3 minutes were missing. Like, what, bro? Say something, man. Is it a minute? Is it 3 minutes? This is why I'm saying, bro. We need Detective Dopes for sure. I agree. We need Detective James Dopes. We might even need Dexter. But more so than that, most importantly, we need the homie rolling those fat doobies like it's not, man. Don't be rolling those fat doobies, guys. I don't want you guys to be like, you know, rolling 20, 30 doobies. And then you're like, huh? What? Where have the times gone? Yeah, no, don't do that. 1 or 2 doobie, I get 20, 30. Way too much, guys. Way too much gang, but okay.
We're baby? What is this? Minute missing from it? Yeah. Like, do you think we're babies? Like, what is this?
The backstory, of course, FBI Director Kash Patel, who was on Rogan last month, promising to release everything that the administration could. But Patel has since faced blowback from Trump supporters after the DOJ earlier this month released a memo affirming that Epstein had died by suicide and that there was no evidence the financier had client lists that could lead to more prosecutions. So, John Hyman, you're our Manosphere correspondent, and I wanted to get your sense as to why you...
Yeah, right. Everybody beefing, man. Like Trump supporters beefing, anti-Trump supporters beefing, people that are in the middle beefing, everybody beefing. Like, we beefing, man. Everybody beefing. But now, seriously, people that are governing us.
The difference between an average morning and a holiday is hearty goodness that lasts till lunchtime, like our smoked sausage biscuit and Frisco breakfast sandwich. Harvest. Goodness in the making.
Relationships are important. We need these connections to feel part of something bigger, but also grounded. And when we get it right, they are extremely rewarding. And then there are some relationships that just feel like a mirror. On your Molly Maid, we follow your preferences each time to make sure your home is cleaned exactly the way you like, with your home feeling fresh. You can build the relationships most. Molly Maid, a neighborly company.
They went to the island, did those heinous crimes, and nothing is being done about it. Goes to show you, like, where we are as a species, bro. Rules for people, not for me.
You think this is a rip? We know that the Epstein conspiracy theories really erupted on the right, and President Trump, for the first time, has been unable to put it back in the box. Like, these people, Rogan, Schultz, the like, they're not letting it go.
I want to show you this.
Yeah, they're not idiots. And a lot of those...
You know what? Let's actually cut to the chase. I want to show you this video too. But real quick, though, a minute of this one, which is this one is from Charlie.
In the world, his partner, by the way, the only person to ever face any repercussions for their involvement in Epstein's crimes, is potentially looking at a pardon. Is that not the most sickening thing you could possibly imagine? So what's happening now is this administration has fully keyed the order of confusion, and they've completely stopped pretending to give even the slightest fuck about the Epstein files. They're not even dropping morsels of information regarding that anymore. Instead, they've shifted their focus to Ghislaine Maxwell, whom is somehow drumming up quite a bit of support from chunks of the MAGA team, Squad MAGA. But there are people unironically cheering for Ghislaine Maxwell as if she's some kind of fucking hero right now.
Yeah,
she is a child sex trafficker.
Hey, whoa, hey, bro, time out, bro. Time out, man. Time out, bro. Chill. What the hell, man? Like, okay, so that's a minute 12:27. I gotta remove that word because that's not allowed on YouTube, bro.
What is happening to the world? But now, since the administration has completely given up on ever releasing the Epstein files, it seems, they're talking with her and getting a potential pardon and recently like this limited immunity in her face. Which, if you have your thinking caps on, if your IQ is, above 60, you should be able to recognize how manipulative this is. Why would you not release the Epstein files? You have the... Well, actually, if you...
And, I mean, yeah, facts, but another point is Trump just confirmed Bill Clinton went to the island 28 times. So another reason to release the files and show us the truth and let the names out. Because it's not just Bill Clinton. It's not just the U.S. politicians. It's politicians from all over the globe. Chances are high, whatever country, whatever server you're living in right now, your politician that may still be governing you, or that has governed you before, or your parents, or your ancestors, actually went to the island and did that crazy stuff, man. And they're either no longer with us now, or they're still walking free with billions of dollars, and nothing is being done about it. It's insane, man. It is really, really insane. Shout out to the homie Dr. G, okay? So he's gonna go in body language and analysis style bullet.
Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist as well as a body language expert, and today we're going to be analyzing the behavior and body language of Jeffrey Epstein during a deposition and respond to questions about President Trump. Before we get started with this, a couple of quick things. One, I wanted to make sure you know this is not a psychological evaluation of any kind. These are just my opinions. In addition to that, I do want to remind you to subscribe if you want to see more content. Just like this. All right, let's go.
Have you ever had a personal relationship with Donald Trump?
And the first thing you saw was as soon as he said Donald Trump, Jeffrey Epstein's eyes started blinking. And they blink like that when you feel stressed. So immediately, when the name Donald Trump was said, Jeffrey Epstein started getting nervous. We're going to go back and we're going to keep watching.
Have you ever had a personal relationship with Donald Trump?
Oh yeah, he blinked twice.
Before he started speaking again, you saw the eyes flutter again. More and more stressed. These are questions he does not want to answer.
Right.
Have you socialized with him?
So you'll notice the only place you're seeing stress at first is the blinking. And that's because he's being very aware of the crawl. So as well as he's controlling the rest of his face right now, the blinking is giving away how stress he's experiencing. Next thing I want you to pay attention to is his hands and his face. Watch this right here.
Have you slept with him? Yes.
Now we taught something very, very interesting. I actually had to go back after editing this because I caught it while I was editing. And this is really surprising. I want you to watch his mouth. Now, with fear.
Pause.
Looks something like that. Okay, that's real genuine fear. Not feeling uncomfortable, not feeling a little bit anxious. That is fear. And when he's talking about this, you briefly see fear flash across his face. And the reason that's so significant, a psychopath. If you read about the things that he has done, he has to be. There's no question about it. For him to actually feel fear, which he probably doesn't feel very much, it has got to be something really intense.
Oh shit.
So listen to this context.
I mean, he made a compelling point though. Those crimes, I mean, some of the most heinous crimes had an island, dedicated island, shit, man. Okay, well, alright, let's find out.
I'm gonna watch it a couple of times, but you can watch his mouth. You'll see what I'm talking about. It's subtle, but it is 100% there.
Have you socialized with him? Yes. Have you ever
There it was. I'm going to try to pause and watch this.
socialized with him? Yes.
Ooh, okay, a little bit.
Watch the corners of the mouth. They go down, and what it can only be explained here.
Have you socialized with him? Yes. Have you ever socialized with him?
And he's like hiding the face as well. I guess that's. I mean, I'm not a body language analysis expert, so this is why we got the homie Dr. G on it, man.
Have you ever socialized with Donald?
And then he immediately follows that up, closing and almost pinning his mouth closed. I mean, look at the way that he's holding his mouth closed. He's not going to try to say anything about this. Like, he's desperate to say nothing about this. Go back and watch that one last time. We'll keep going.
Yeah, no complaint.
Socialized with him? Yes. Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the...
All right, so
yeah,
if you look at each individual hand position, this, individually paused like that for a long time, or if you're sitting like that to be comfortable, that's one thing. He's very fitty right now, going from this position to this position. When we touch our lips, it calms.
Yeah, he made a good point though, because people do that. Even I do that sometimes. Like when we're making videos, like you probably caught me doing. Like even now, naturally, I did that too. Because like I got a table here, and you know, like sometimes like I sit straight, sometimes I'm like a little hunched over. So I need like a little bit of that support, right? People do that. I do that. You do that too, right? But in this situation, like this is completely different. Yeah, even though I'm not a body language expert, like, it does make sense. Like, yeah, he said that, and then he just followed up by like hiding his face. I will like, you know, don't want to say too much. Makes sense, yeah.
Sits down. You'll also see he's covering his mouth right now. We do this as a way to not say things, to not say something that we want to say. Sometimes you see people withdraw their lips. Right now, he's physically covering his mouth. So there's definitely things that he does not want to say. That is very clear.
Yes. Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
All right, now we're catching a lot here. If you're watching his eyes and you're watching his hand, that's really what we're seeing every
I don't think, yeah, okay, I'm assuming because this is from March 17, 2010. Is it really from 2010? Shit, okay. I think he wouldn't say anything because, okay, let's find out. Let's find out.
Right now. Now, oftentimes when we talk, we raise our eyebrows to bring attention to our face. You're not seeing anything like that because he does not want you to be paying attention to him right now. He's trying to hide as much as he can. So you see the hand covering the mouth. That truly is to obscure, one, the view of the face by a little bit. It doesn't obscure it entirely. But also, once again, That's his unconscious desire to not say anything. He really does not want to express what's going on in his mind. Second, continue to watch the eyes. There is a specific rhythm that he continues to blink his eyes. Watch this again. Just watch all of this and just pay attention to his eyes.
Realized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18.
Did you see how many times he would stop and start blinking really quickly? I've watched as much Jeffrey Epstein footage as is out there, and he does not always do this.
Yeah, that's a good way, right? Because this is something that I heard too. Like, there are some people that naturally blink a lot. It doesn't mean that they're lying or under pressure or none of that. And he said that he watched a lot of Jeffrey Epstein footage where he doesn't blink, and here he is blinking a lot. So that's a different pattern is what he's getting across. That's the point he's getting across. So yeah, no, that's a good point there.
I'd like to answer that question, at least today. I'm going to have to insert my fifth, sixth, and fifth of the human rights.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's go back and watch.
Damn, we could have had the answer back in 2010, but they got rid of him, man, before he could spill the beans, right? The files, guys, I don't think we're gonna get it anytime soon. Seriously, at least not the real files, because if the real files comes out, bro, there are just so many politicians. I'm assuming that based off of what we have seen in the past data and all that, and just assuming based off of the information, this is more like an educated guess, but yeah, right, like shit. There's probably some of the most powerful men, powerful politicians on the list. We're probably gonna get the list when all of them have died or passed away, when justice cannot be served. That's probably when we're gonna get to see the real files. And we may not even get it in our lifetime. We may get it when we have passed away, right? Yeah, shit. If we get it early, and if we get the real one, the true one, that would be shocking right now, because based off of everything that's going on, it seems very hard. I want to know your thoughts for sure.
First part of that again.
Females under the age of 18.
So you saw a pause, taking time to process what to do. This is one of the things that we watch in body language, is that body language is mostly involuntary. Not everything is involuntary, but the meaning of body language is. So oftentimes when we disagree with something, we can't help but shake our head no. And typically that would happen as soon as he started thinking or feeling it. So as soon as he heard something he disagreed with, typically what you'd see, you'd immediately see that head shake. What we're seeing here, we're seeing him listen, process, think, and then shake. And that has a lot more to do with deception. We take that specifically with deception, as opposed to as soon as the question's being asked, you're already seeing some stuff that you know. Watch this again, we'll see what I mean.
Donald Trump in the presence of females under the 18.
See, there was a pause, a subtle head shake, and it looked like there was some contempt in the corner of his mouth, because when we do that, the one side of the face, that's specifically contempt. So I think he felt contempt after being asked this question.
He's gonna say something.
It's very subtle, but you can see it on the left side of his mouth.
I'd like to answer that question, at least today. I'm going to have to insert my fifth, sixth, and fifth of the human rights.
So I talked about how he's...
Yeah, he didn't say no, he didn't say yes, but the body language kind of said it all. That's crazy. And of course, he's no longer with us, so the answers kind of been with him, or not really, we got the files, but the files are not coming out, so...
Putting his hand over his mouth to block what he's going to say. Watch, it goes exactly in line with what he's saying. Watch.
I'd like to answer that question, please, today.
So I'd like to answer that question today. He's covering his mouth. I'm not saying anything today. He also closes his eyes, or he's looking down, and he's alert gaze when he's saying that. Being deceptive, even for people that are psychopaths, can be uncomfortable if they're in a situation where they feel like the stakes are really, really high. And this is one of those situations.
I'm going to have to insert my fifth, sixth, and fifth of the human rights.
Now look at the blinking stops as he is asserting his fifth, sixth, and 14th Amendment rights. Watch this.
Females under the age of 18. I'd like to answer that question today. I'm going to have to insert my fifth.
That was the one time we saw an eyebrow raise, at least today. So he's now very clear. Focus on this. I'm not saying anything today.
I'd like to answer that question, at least today. I'm going to have to insert
since the Brooklyn and the Reds are.
Yeah, man, we're never getting the files at this point, but we gotta keep on with V2Man answers. Check out this video on the screen if you have not seen it, because the stuff that came out recently just absolutely insane, diabolical. I'm not sure if you saw this or not, but check it out if you haven't, and I'll see you right there. It's crazy.
The lodge at Sea Island will whisk you away. It has all the space you need to get closer than her. And you wouldn't have it any other way.
Feel better with
My feet used to hurt so badly. Swear in front of my children and then blame it on the homeschool kid next door for teaching them those words. Did you forget your lunch again? Then I found Kuru. Kuru has a pad heel design that'll stop you from emotionally scarring your children with foot pain profanity. Like I have so many thousands of times.
The Louis T Network is powered by Music Head University. Music Heads, classes and turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be? For me, your man, Louis T. Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command now, of course, from your Commander-in-Chief, Louis T. Thank you for joining me. A few topics to get to tonight. We're going to continue with the command core. We've knocked down the offensive line. We've knocked down the running back position. Tonight we're going to knock down the defensive line. Before we get to that, I want to talk about Terry McLaurin's contractual situation. I read an article written by Joel Corey for CBS Sports. He does a phenomenal job talking contracts, former NFL agent that does a really good job of breaking things down and making it very understandable for the fan, right? Contract negotiations is tough. There's a lot of factors that have to be taken into consideration. And, you know, there's been a lot of scuttlebutt amongst commanders and as the number compared looks like, how much you should pay, et cetera, et cetera. There are certain factors too that, you know, you don't necessarily put into the equation that you should. I know some fans leave certain things out. I think it's very important. And we'll get to some of those things. I'll discuss some of those things when we look at some of the excerpts from that particular article, which I trimmed it down and taken the best that I think are most impactful from that article. I'm going to go over that to try to get closer to what we think the number really is for Terry and his camp when it's all said and done. Because a lot of numbers have been thrown out there. You know, I think there's some outlandish numbers that I've heard people saying. Like even last night, we were on the Commanders King stream, and I think Ed or Rico, one of them said that someone said something about $37 million. And I'm like, there's just no way that the number's that high. I don't even think Terry's camp would even propose a number that, I mean, Justin Jefferson getting 36. There's no way in hell that Terry and his camp thinks that they're getting more than Justin Jefferson, which, again, I know how these negotiations work. You ask for a number that's a lot higher than what you actually want because you expect the other side to rebuff that and counter with something, and then you hope somehow to meet in the middle. But that's just an outlandish number. We've got to be real about the situation. So that's what this discussion about Terry's contract is about tonight. But before we get to that, there was a brand new episode of the Commander Vlog. I had suggested that, man, it's been a while. Like, what's going on? It feels like it's been an eternity since we've gotten an episode of the Commander Vlog. And lo and behold, we got one today. It was very brief. It was 19 minutes, roughly. Just a shade over 19 minutes. It really didn't have anything to do with the team on the field, per se. more so the themes surrounding it, and it just continues on the point of the health of this organization, and just in how good a shape we are in, and where we've come from, and what we've dealt with, and to see the things that now we discuss. Like, isn't it refreshing to be having a conversation about getting the stadium back to RFK and legitimately knowing that that's going to take place? Isn't it refreshing to talk about, the Terry contract situation, and we would hope that would already be done, honestly, but it's refreshing to be talking about things that have to do with actual football operations and not things that have to do with off the field and nothing to do with football. And this was another reminder of that. This episode of the Commander's Log was a reminder of that. It's centered around going back to RFK. It's centered around Dan Quinn's trip back to Salisbury University, where he gave a speech to the graduating class. And it's centered around, I think there was one more thing in between the two items that I just brought up. Like having the players back in the building, getting everybody back working out, that sort of thing. It wasn't a lot to players themselves. It was more about the things going around the organization right now. I have a feeling we're going to get something to do with the uniforms in the next one. Hopefully a Terry extension in the next one. Well, wrap all those things up and then also get going to training. Maybe they'll separate those two and create a single video or episode of the Commander's Log for just the uniforms and Terry's extension. That seems probably more likely than them trying to then transition straight into the beginning of training camp. Although I would be good with them just waiting, giving us a longer episode than what they did this time, which was just 19 minutes. I mean, it's better than nothing, right? But it felt like as soon as I turned it on, it was over. They spoiled me. My wife was like, 19 minutes? What happened to the 45? Like, you don't get those as often. We got spoiled for a little while there. They were making movies, and that team gave them the opportunity to make movies. This is that you're in the lean part of the year, not as much to talk about, and so I felt like they could have given us a lot of OTA stuff. Sure, they had been, recording the phase 1, 2, and 3. I thought they could have put some of that stuff in there. Oh yeah, they had like an outing with the players at a lunch. It's almost like a luncheon with Josh Harrison's wife, and like a high school team was there. And we remember seeing like little clips of them planking, and Jalen Lane and a high schooler were like the last two left, and the high schooler ended up winning. And so they all were talking about, that experience and how this was a true brotherhood. A lot of the rookies spoke. Kay Madrano, Jalen Lane, Josh Connolly Jr. were the main ones that spoke. So it was, again, a quick in and out episode. It was enough to scratch the itch, but I'll be itching soon, very, very soon. And I want some on the field stuff next time, if you don't mind. So it would be nice. I feel like I'm being a spoiled brat right now. I feel like, it doesn't matter at this point. It's never going to be enough. That's not true, if that's how I'm right now. But they spoiled me. Like, I am going to say that. They did spoil me. And so, I do want more. But I'll take what I can get. So, if you haven't watched that yet, 19 minutes and like 2 seconds, so really quick episode, but it just reinforces that we've got a good thing going. And I think the biggest takeaway for me was that DQ is the ultimate leader, and I will be absolutely shocked if, with his leadership and tutelage, we don't win 2 Super Bowls. I'll be shocked. If we continue to assemble the right pieces, and Jaden Daniels is what we all think he is, I'll be shocked if BQ doesn't add a couple more trophies, Lombardi to the case. I'll be shocked. His leadership style and the way that he conducts himself and that speech he gave, excellent. I mean, how do you not leave that graduation and say, I'm ready to go tackle the world, right? I'm ready to go get after it. So, yeah, it was a solid episode, but we're in great hands. That's what I left that episode saying. Man, we're in great shape. So, Terry is this topic is going to start becoming one that is going to circulate. There's going to be a lot of different. I'm pretty sure you've seen them if you've been looking for them. I'm not looking for any of them, but I'm pretty sure there have been a number of best trade, landing destinations for Terry McLaurin, et cetera. You'll start to see those articles. They're going to pop up, and it's not just Terry, right? So they've happened for TJ Watt, right? And any other player that's disgruntled and hasn't gotten a contract, right, yet. All of those things have popped up for them as well. But ultimately, TJ Watt's not going anywhere. Ultimately, Terry McLaurin's not going anywhere. Really, the real question becomes, what does a deal for those players look like? And I could care less about TJ Watt, right? I'm more concerned with Terry McLaurin. But what does a deal for Terry McLaurin look like? And when is it going to be reached? I've been adamant that the deal is coming within the next week or two, so I'm not stressed about that. But the number is something that I think a lot of people are interested to see what it ends up being. I've seen people all over the map. You got people that have lost their damn minds who are probably a taco short of a combination plate that are talking 22, 23. The man's already making that kind of money. Why would he want to sign a deal that is of that ilk? That doesn't make any sense. And then you've got people saying, well, he should be rated in that $28 million, $29 million range. That's crazy, right? Because, and this article will...
Airwick's cordless essential mist diffuser's perfectly portable fragrance is great for inviting friends to come on over. It has a range of quick change scents for date night and book club, so you can make every occasion to come over fragrant and inviting. Airwick, always fragrant, always inviting.
In a healthy gut garden, balance is key. Benefiber's plant-based prebiotic fiber gently nourishes the gut, working with your body to help you flourish. Grow it feels good with Benefiber. And for 6 grams of fiber with triple skin support, try new Benefiber Superfruits.
Fred Anderson Hyundai of Greer, where Hyundai buyers go for lower payments, easy financing, and the family plan, including lifetime oil payments.
Try new Hyundais for $159 a month. $159 a month.
Fred Anderson Hyundai in Greer.
An abrupt tug on the rod conjures up curiosity of what wild creature is on the line. You experience an inner peace that can only be felt while floating on water. You feel a sense of contentment as you relish in a moment that will last a lifetime. Here is where you experience feelings as vast as the sea. This is Alabama, and when you're here, you can take it all in.
Give you a better perspective if that's the way you're thinking about it, right? So let's get to this article that I found very fascinating regarding Terry McLaurin and what the market for him is more likely than not going to be, right? So this, again, is an excerpt. These are excerpts. I cut and paste a few paragraphs from an article written by Joel Corey of CBS Sports, former NFL agent who has been with CBS Sports probably now for 5-6 years and does a tremendous job covering the NFL, but more specifically in his wheelhouse, talking about NFL contracts from both the player perspective / agent perspective and then the team perspective, right? How his experience has led him to be able to have these types of conversations that allow you as a fan into the discussions that are taking place when it comes to these contracts, right? He does a tremendous job of laying this stuff out. So Here's the article, and I'll stop periodically when something is said that I want to add to or talk about, but we'll get through all of this. So, the first excerpt says, once again, Joel Corey, CBS Sports article written about the Terry McLaurin deal and what it looks like. Getting a deal done is going to require the Commanders acknowledging that McLaurin is a number one wide receiver and should be paid accordingly. McLaurin is the primary receiving threat on the Commanders. He led the Commanders with 117 targets in 2024. I feel like that's without saying, but I've seen some, people out there. I'm trying not to call names because calling names is not necessary and it's not nice, especially when some of these people are family members. So I need to behave myself. But anybody that thinks that Terry, we've had this conversation years ago, right? Even when Chris Cooley disagreed and said that McLaurin wasn't a number one receiver, I thought that was bullshit. And I called bullshit then. Terry McLaurin is the number one wide receiver. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's established that. That's not a conversation. They know that. That's not something that he has to have his agent express to them. They understand that Terry McLaurin is the number one wide receiver in this league. That said, the Commanders don't have another wide receiver who can fill McLaurin's shoes. Amen. Right? Like yesterday on the Commanders Kings show, I had thrown out this cockamamie hypothetical where we trade McLaurin, whether it was 2-1 or 1. The problem is now you leave a massive void on this roster if that were to occur, right? Because you don't have anyone else that can do the things that Terry McLaurin can do, right? Deebo Samuel, who was acquired from the San Francisco 49ers in March for a 2025 fifth-round pick, hasn't been extremely productive since the 2021 season when he earned first-team All-Pro honors. Just like McLaurin, 2025 is a contract year for Samuel, right? We know what Deebo is, or what we hope he's going to be, but it's not like we don't expect him to be Terry. If he plays to that level, great. That's going to make our offense that much more unstoppable. But that's not the expectation, right? T. Higgins sets the market for number 2 wide receiver. This is where it gets really interesting. After being designated as a franchise player of the Cincinnati Bengals for a second straight year, Higgins signed a 4-year, $115 million contract, averaging $28.75 million per year in March. That deal is worth up to $121.8 million through incentives. Higgins eclipsed the 3-year, $84.75 million extension, averaging $28.25 million per year for Jalen Waddle received from the Dolphins during the 2024 offseason to set the pay scale for the number 2 wide receiver.